Detective Pineda served as corporal in the United States Marine Corps. He was here.
He's got to make an entrance.
Of course.
And we also have another resident, Robert Coos. He's a staff sergeant in the U.S. Marine Corps. So I have a proclamation to read. Here's Detective Pineda. All right, I'd just like to read the proclamation. Whereas on Veterans Day, our nation comes together to honor our veterans and commemorate the legacy of profound service and sacrifice they have upheld in pursuit of a more perfect union. Through their steadfast defense of America's ideals, our service members have ensured our country still stands strong, our founding principles still shine, and nations around the world know the blessings of freedom. The selflessness of our service members is unmatched, and they remind us that there are few things more fundamentally American than doing our utmost to make a difference in the lives of others. Just as our veterans stood watch on freedom's frontier, so have they safeguarded the prosperity of our nation and our neighborhoods, our businesses, and our homes. Serving as teachers and engineers, parents, and local government employees, these patriots have made contributions to civilian life that serve as a testament to their dedication to the welfare of our country. Now, therefore, let it be proclaimed by the Honorable Mayor and the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park that all citizens observe the day with appropriate ceremonies in honor of those who have served to preserve the principles of justice, freedom, and democracy. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, do you want to get a picture with the veterans and the commission? Let's take a minute to do that. Do y'all want to come on down? Yep. That's it. Candido was.
Yeah, I can see that.
He said something very super secret to him. No idea. Like asked him a question about anything. Yeah. It was the on-set reply type.
Yeah, right.
I don't trust me on camera. Christian?
All right, item
you.
4B is it Y-Green? Y-Green presentation by Rafael Perez, Vice President of Operations. Welcome.
Good evening. You hear me? You guys can hear me? Mr. Mayor, Commission, staff, residents, good evening. Mr. Mayor, thank you for promoting me. I'm not the vice president. I'm the regional manager. Joe, unfortunately, couldn't make it because he had a deaf in his family.
Okay.
But I wanted to tell the residents of Biscayne Park that we're open for business. The village joined with 13 other cities to create a program called PACE Financing, Property Assessed Clean Energy. And what that does, it allows, you're in the wrong, it's the other one.
It's not the right file?
Yeah, it's the one that says Biscayne Park. I'll go ahead and get started, but what it is
Sorry.
it allows any property owners that want to do retrofit to their property that fall within renewable energy, so solar, energy efficiency upgrades, your AC, your insulation, your water heaters, and lastly, hurricane protection measures, your impact windows, your roof, you could finance this through your property taxes as a non-ad valorem assessment for the maximum of 20 years. You pay back through your property tax, and it's giving people, the biggest obstacle today is coming out of pocket. So this is giving people terms. And the village has allowed this for the residents as another option. There's still traditional financing stuff, and we're able to get it up. Okay.
Trying to.
It's a voluntary program. Anybody that doesn't want to use it doesn't have to use it. It's my company, Green. We're the administrators. We provide, there's no taxpayers' money used. We carry all the shoulders, which carry it all on our shoulders, all the costs, we burden it. It's a win-win. It creates jobs. We've been in existence since last October, and we've done over 120 jobs we funded, and I'm moving a little fast, but the one that says, yeah, that one, yes. So the Villages program started back 2 months ago, and so far we've done 12 applications have come in, and there's 8 people that are some version of construction. They're close to finishing their jobs, and they're very excited. I could hear when they make the calls to us and tell us, you know, thank you, you know, I could do my impact windows. I couldn't do my roof. I didn't know where to find the money. To qualify is a little bit different than traditional financing. All you have to have is 10% equity in your property, no lates on your taxes for the last 3 years, no lates on your mortgage for the last 12 months, and no bankruptcy in the last year. You meet that, you're going to qualify. So once again, it's an option for people. Well, so just to go, so the 12 application we're talking about, the 8 projects are going to total to about $250,000 of work done in village homes. So it's creating jobs. And so far in the last year, we've taken in 850 applications and have done over 120 jobs for $5 million. Most of the upgrades usually are windows and roof. We're having some solar and stuff. And really the purpose of me coming today at the pleasure of Vice Mayor Ross was just to tell the residents we're open for business. And hopefully we can get the slide up. But we are here located in Mary Street in the Grove. And our phone number is 305-569-0015. And they want to, it'll come up eventually.
Okay.
So,
It's an old computer.
so just the last slide will be for the public to be able to see our address and stuff and make calls and ask us questions. I mean, we've already done this 120 times. We're able to answer all the questions. We have a lot of good contractors that have been certified. We vet them. This is a great program for the public. They don't have to worry about if the contractor is he licensed. We vet them. We don't pay till the end, till the work is complete 100%. A city inspected, and the property owner signs a closing statement. So it gives a level of protection to the public. So a lot of people have liked that. There's the number. There's the information. Rafael Perez. If I'll entertain a question if you like, or that's about it on my part.
Thank you, Rafael. Any questions?
The middle slide, I think, has the families.
Yeah. Yes, go one slide back. Yeah, so what this is just showing is Biscayne Park has done 12 applications. 8 are in construction for $250,000. And the other cities, 850 applications, about 305 are in some form of construction for $9 million. And the last one, 120, have been funded for $5 million. Yes, Commissioner.
So if someone were to sign up with you, you would essentially be the subcontractor and get the people to do the windows and do the roof?
No, ma'am. We are just the financing mechanism, but what we do is we vet the contractors to make sure they're licensed, make sure anybody could use people that are already in the program, but if they're not in the program, we do a certification class every month to certify new contractors. So so you apply, we approve you, then we say you could choose from a list of our certified contractors, or if you have somebody that you're working with, we certify them, and then they can use the program.
Okay, and then the bill goes into my property taxes at a certain rate, so that every year I pay an extra $1,000 on my property taxes? Is that?
Yeah, so whatever you finance, it's broken down in your property tax either for 10 years or for 20 years. And then one installment will go on your property taxes. You're getting the upgrade to your property, and you're just paying it back with terms.
All right, Rafael, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
All right, any additions or deletions to the agenda? Staff?
I'd like to add under 7B, financial update by our finance director.
Okay, anything on the commission? I think that's,
Small cabin renovation.
that's under the village manager report. You want to have at that time, or you want to have it earlier?
I guess we can have it at that time.
Okay. Anything else? All right, seeing none, we'll move into the public comment period. If everyone would state their name and address for the record.
Good evening. Dan Samaria, 1030 Northeast 121st Street. I would like to address the item 12F submitted by Commissioner Jonas in reference to the Village of Biscayne Park boards. As chairperson of the Recreation Board, I would like to say, if the intent of this item is to disband or suspend any of the sitting boards, then I object to the vigorous of the agenda item wording. If Commissioner Jonas wants to act upon specific board, then let him announce it clearly and give valid reasons why he would want to take away this important representation of our young families, especially without notification in a specific board disbanding or suspension. If the intent is to let residents know that volunteers are needed for the board, I applaud the attempt. However, the rec board is an important board in the village with so many young families and so many recreation events using the recreation facility, and especially when there's not a single sitting commissioner with children under 18 years old. Who speaks for the children? The Recreation Board does. It is true that our last two meetings we did not have quorum due to members' scheduling conflicts. And at this time, there are two commissioners who have not found a board member after some recent resignations. I know one of the applications already submitted, and there are two more that are pending. Please work with us to appoint board members, and there will be no quorum issues. There is work to be done here, and without the only board that is focused on children, who will do it? The board has raised funds in the interest of the Recreation Center and has volunteered at every village-wide recreation event for many years, which has included the Winterfest, Easter egg hunt, Halloween parties, children's safety, and many, many more. To even consider disbanding this board because of scheduling conflicts for 2 meetings is inappropriate and not unnecessary punishing to the community. I would like to request the commission to waive the 6-month residency rule for one application that we wanted to submit. We need to work together, the commission and the boards. There are residents that don't even know the boards and on their functions. Since we are trouble filling the boards, maybe the commission might consider allowing more than one family member to be on the boards. It might be a husband, it might be a wife. We're having trouble filling the boards, and I think that that might solve some of our problems. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Dan.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Rodriguez. I live at 890 Northeast 113th Street. And I'm up here to say a few things. One thing is mainly about the board of the recreation, which I didn't know existed, and I'd like to be considered as part to be part of that board, because I care very much about the recreation park, as some of you already know, that I've visited and made comments about before. I live right across the street from it, so it directly impacts me. I've asked the police department quite a few times to have the people get off, because they make a lot of noise when they're playing there, and afterwards, even after dark, they're still there. And I got to applaud everybody here. The police have really stepped up, but they're still staying. They're still, making noises. And I didn't even know that there was a recreation board. I noticed that that the commissioners were very helpful with the foundation board, and you guys were really putting a lot of effort into having ideas for that board, and I'd like you to follow suit in all the other boards, including the recreation board. The gentleman just before me has asked, it seems to be asking for your help, and I did not know that there was a board like that. I think I said that 3 times. But in other words, maybe there are other boards and other things that we need to know about, and that people like me can be part of it. Just asking you, please, for the children's sake, consider helping all the boards, not just one board and get rid of the other boards. Just make it all around everybody. Now, I want to move, if time permits. There was a situation that I want to bring out. It has to do with waste management, and I thought that very untasteful. My neighbor had put a cubic yard and some sticks, and he had put some logs there from his tree that had been cut up. And one of the one of the waste management trash people, when they came, they were picking up, made a complaint to him about why he always has such heavy things. And he said, well, that's your job to pick these up. These are within the yard sticks that and he started taking them off. And he said, well, don't you have anything for the trash man? And I thought to myself, the gall of that employee asking for recompense for picking up garbage. Where does he get off saying that? Well, my neighbor offered him a Diet Coke and Diet Tea because they have diabetes. You know what he said to him? He said, no, I want something with sugar. I said, well, I can offer you water. He says, we got plenty of water in the truck. That is unheard of. I've already said to you before, people not from our park abusing the residents like myself. When the recreation coach called me an SOB, it's totally unheard of. He's still coaching here. I still see his car. I can't come around the park anymore because he said he's going to call the cops on me. This is totally unheard of. We were never abused like this. Now that by the public works people or by people renting our park. I demand some respect from the vendors and from the people that work for us.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Daniel, there's an application form for the Parks and Rec, so if you are interested, perfect.
And by the way, you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you. Excellent, thank you. All right, any other public comment?
Sure.
3 dance in a row.
There's a swale ordinance that's been proposed. Dan Keys, by the way. And just like to say, I think that the document needs some additional work. And just to keep it short, I think that it would be valuable for the code review and Parks and Parkways and village staff to get together at one or more meetings to try to hash out some of these things. And I guess we might hear a little bit of your commentary as to how you feel about certain things and regarding that as well. But it just needs some tweaking. I don't believe that the document's really been vetted by driving around the village and seeing how it will actually affect the community. I think it's, let me say, I think it's going a long way in the right direction, but we need to tweak it a little bit. Strategic plan proposals being made. I think it's a good idea, and I support the inclusion of the boards in that process. But I think that any initial thoughts that come out of that meeting or series of meetings should be mulled over a little bit before they actually become the policy of the community. Lots of times we get excited about an idea that gets thrown out at a quick meeting, and you know, it doesn't necessarily work out as you think about it a little bit. So, you know, I don't exactly know what the commissioner has in mind with the board item that's on the agenda tonight, but you know, other cities periodically evaluate their boards to see whether or not they are still serving the community or the purpose that they were put together for. And, you know, I believe that the staff could make a recommendation with regard to that to keep it out of the political realm. I don't know that anybody is recommending any boards be done away with, but, you know, it's not an unheard of process for boards to be evaluated. Regarding the proposal to have a vote on the annexation proposal and or a charter change to require that, I'll hold off on whether or not a charter change is appropriate because I may be assisting with evaluating the charter in the future. But with this particular one, and I don't believe that there is a vote necessary of our community. This proposal is not problematic. It's beneficial to the community, and you all have a choice whether to give it to a vote or not. At this point, you have that right, and I just don't believe that that's necessary at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Any other public comment?
Harvey Bilt, 450 Northeast 121st Street. I agree with Dan. Everybody was elected, carry on the wishes of the public, and I think we've had enough meetings that everybody agreed to go ahead with the proposal to annex the other area. And since we've already decided, and people spent many, many meetings, I can't understand why it needs to be put to a public vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. Any others?
Hi, Steve Bernard, 860 Northeast 115th Street. As far as the boards go, if anybody is thinking about disbanding a board, it really needs a full notification. If somebody thinks it ought to be gone, put it on the agenda so enough people can see what it is. I happen to think the rec board has done probably more good for this village than most any. As far as the swale ordinance, the only concern I have is some people have very large trees, and when they bought their house, it was not their responsibility to trim or to remove if it dies, and you might consider grandfathering it. Regarding Commissioner Watts' agenda item to amend the charter to require resident voting on annexation, this item takes a decision out of what could be as few as 3 people and puts it in the hand of the residents. If not for the disregard the majority of this commission showed for 2 separate petitions, each signed by hundreds of residents opposing the outsourcing of our sanitation, we might not feel the need to take this step, but we do take it because you've shown a willingness to go against the wishes of your constituents when it suits you. But the main goal of this is to force the commission and the administration to publish valid data to substantiate the benefits of annexation. May be great, may be terrible, but so far we haven't seen it. The meetings that we've had, there was 1 public meeting for this particular application. It's not enough. We are adults. We can understand what's valid and what's not. In 2012, current commissioners Ross and Anderson and Watts voted to approve an ordinance to change the traditional election date by amending the charter via ballot without a charter review. It could have been done by ordinance, just like annexation, but they chose to have the voters decide. Commissioner Dr. Jonas, before joining the commission, was the force behind changing that election date, and he was adamant that the people should be able to make the vote to make the change. What's the difference on this one? Maybe it's because last time you thought everybody agreed with you. This time you don't think they do. Commissioner Ross said at the March 6th meeting, 2012, prior to making a motion to put the election date change to a referendum, that we should put it on the ballot, this is a quote, and let the voters decide. Because if we don't, voters will rise up and sign petitions to force this as a referendum on the ballot. Even though it was the first public discussion, and even though she never offered any evidence that the villagers would rise up. However, in this case, there is evidence, and it's in the form of triple the 10 electors required to agree to be on an initiative petition committee to proceed with it. The petition reads, as a duly qualified elector and resident of the village of Biscayne Park, I agreed to be one of the 10 required electors to commence initiative proceedings to amend the charter to require a vote on any annexation proceedings. I feel any attempts by the commission to annex should include a vote by electors on changes to the current village boundaries, which should be backed up with enough information for residents to be able to understand the ramifications. I also understand that as per the charter, initiative petitions must be signed by electors of the village equal in number of at least 10% of the total numbers of electors registered to vote the last registered election, or approximately 200 electors, and I agree to be one of those electors. I've got 30 people that are willing to be on this committee in a day. So tonight the commission can work with their neighbors and their constituents by proceeding with an ordinance to put the charter amendment on the ballot, or you can work against them by forcing a petition. Because make no mistake, this petition will happen. And every single elector that signs that petition is going to know they're doing it because their commission didn't want to give them a voice. 3 of you failed to listen to us during sanitation outsourcing. Please don't fail to listen to us now. I urge you to allow your constituents to make this momentous choice and put the ability to vote on annexation in our hands, just as you did 2 years ago. There were 4 of you sitting up there right now. Mayor Coviello wasn't on the commission. Dr. Jonas wasn't either, but he's the one that pushed for the vote. He handed out ballots, handed out cards on doors saying, let's put it to a vote.
Steve, just wrap up.
I will wrap it up. You have a chance to win back the confidence of your constituents. By saying no to this, you're going to have a petition, and you're going to have people saying, why are they proceeding? Why are they not letting us do it? But the difference is a formal petition puts it on the ballot anyway. Please do what's right for the village.
Thank you, Steve. Any other public comment?
Chuck Ross, 11166 Griffin Boulevard. Before I get to public comment, can I just make a few comments about Crime Watch?
Sure.
Off the clock, thanks. I put out a flyer in the newsletter that Heidi told me about, I mentioned earlier, rather, when we were in the foundation meeting, to please be careful with your vehicles, lock up your houses, etc. We've had several vehicles that have been burglarized because they were left unlocked, and you know, it's just crimes of opportunity. So we please ask you to be careful, and let's not make ourselves, you know, I don't want to say victims, but you know, if you leave your houses and your windows open and your cars open, and people take advantage of that, then you know, just ask you to be careful. So let me go on the clock now. Where's Maria? We're also we're going to have a Crime Watch meeting on November 18th at 7 o'clock here, and I put out a notice, and I hope that anybody who didn't get my email blast
Thank you.
or wants to be on Crime Watch would join the list, and we'll come to the meeting on November 18th here at the Rec Center at 7 o'clock. Maria?
Thank you, Chuck.
He said it always happens. He
You
does
wanna-
that.
Yeah, go ahead. All right. The question isn't should we do a referendum to annex or not. The question is, what is the alternative to obtain significant new revenue sources for the village? So far, I've heard none. The speaker before me, he spoke about having a referendum, but he didn't offer any alternatives. He doesn't offer any solutions. The potential revenue tax base to the east of us is 42%, or $61 million approximately in the next roll, of our current revenue base, which is $144 million. So that's, and this has to, oh, well, by the way, and then on top of that, besides that's the ad valorem taxes. On top of the ad valorem taxes, we're going to get sources from non-ad valorem, which are not even figured in estimates that management has put together. So further, all of the properties across the railroad tracks in the east of us are commercial properties, then including the residential rental properties. So as property taxes increase, these properties are not taxed, are not capped at a potential annual 3% increase, but a potential annual 10% increase. The increased revenue of 9.7 mils on the 61 million would be approximately $562,000. As I said, that doesn't include potential non-ad valorem revenues, such as half-penny sales tax, excise taxes, franchise fees in the future, state revenue sharing, etc. Barbara Watts raised some concerns about the residential renters across the way, and they'll suffer rent increases. No matter whether you think that point is relevant or not, the concern is unfounded. These people have leases in place for existing tenants, and rents fluctuate with what the market will bear. As to the referendum, the top 4 vote getters in the last election all were either openly in favor of annexation. Well, they were all, one was open to it, and the other 3 spoke in favor of it. And they made it clear their position on this. And those are the 4 top vote getters. Of the bottom 2, they were against it. Now, one of those was Manny Espinoza, which Barbara, contrary to what you have stated in the past, since the election, Manny has spoken in favor of annexation as well up here on February 4th, 2014. And what Manny said was, and this is a direct quote from the tape, Manny Espinoza, February 4th, 2014, net income, this sounds great, I love it, and I am a numbers guy. The question is to make sure that we have enough funds to service the area in the beginning, since real estate taxes are paid in arrears. We don't have the funds, and I hear complaints about the reserve accounts being too low, so I'd like to know where we get the funds to service that area. At the beginning, because it's going to be a net income at the end. A great idea, good income. We just need to make sure we can service the area the first year. Now, and by the way, I'm a numbers guy as well. So I concur with Manny's assessment, except the initial phase, what he's referring to with the revenues that are collected in arrears, I'll now wrap it up real quick, is a negotiation that you go through with the county. And the whole purpose of this is to make sure that if we are successful with the annexation, they want us to succeed, and that's something you work out in the transition. So, in conclusion, the vote is already in. To protect property values from diminishing, to ensure that village services are not only maintained but enhanced, we must move forward and annex the properties to our east to provide the resources necessary to benefit the entire village. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck.
Hi, Judy Hamelberg, 1015 Northeast 116th Street. Just as a byline to what Chuck just said, as a property owner here in the park of rental property for several years, our primary reason for having to increase our rents was the tax base going up. As the taxes went up, we couldn't afford to rent it for lower than what we could pay for in the taxes, so our rentals had to go up with it. So to say that the tax base going up on a property is not going to affect the cost of the rental is absurd, because it did. And it did for us, and that was one of our primary reasons for selling the property. On the other issue, I am with the Code Review Board, and I really object to Mr. Key's comment that we have not worked with his Parks and Parkways people. We have met with them. We have talked with them. We have considered what they have offered to us, and we have taken the vast majority of their comments to heart, and they are reflected in the document you see. And I have a real strong objection to Dan wanting to commandeer our group. He did it before. It's not necessary. We have our own group. We're working very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Doc Morris, 734 Northeast 119th Street. I promise to be short. Normally, Steve and I have went head-to-head on many, many issues. And I agree with what he is saying here. I think you have to leave this up to the village people that live here. I don't know what people are so afraid of. If it's such a great idea, everybody's going to vote for it. If you vote for it, fine, I'll go along with it. But I really think you need to have the people in village to vote for this. We did it with the charter. You know, we did it with the election. I just don't see the problem here and why we just can't ask the village residents what they want. If they want this, fine. If they don't, fine. You can't make the millage rate 9.7. That's absolutely impossible. It's 1.92, I think, at the present time. you'll be able to gradually increase this, but you're going to have a period of probably 3 or 4 years in which you're going to be losing money, and you're already talking about going broke. Well, you're going to go broke a lot faster, I would think.
Doc, let me just ask you on that point, what are you basing that point
Was
on?
the numbers that somebody had sent me on some of this annexation, I believe it was Bob. Bob sent me a bunch of information on it, and I had the numbers that were there, and unfortunately I'm not a computer person, so I accidentally deleted the thing, and it went Dixie. But anyway, let the people in the village decide what they want. That's all I'm asking. Don't be afraid of the people. And by the way, thank you for recognizing us vets. And on a happy note, the Rotary is going to give you some more money for the Winterfest. And I'll drop off the check, and you can recognize the president at a later date.
Doc, thank you very much.
Janie Anderson, 11th Place and 119th Street. I guess maybe I feel a certain level of frustration because in 36 years, I've watched too often where we talk a subject to death and we analyze it to death and everybody's got to be happy, but what we don't do is make a decision, therefore the decision gets made for us because we run out of time. We can't let that happen again. For anybody who still wants to believe we don't have a financial issue, I ask you to think of 2 numbers. 9.7, our current millage rate, that still doesn't bring us enough money to do everything. Look at our roads. Look at the crumbling edges. Look at medians that we maintain. If you call cutting, trimming, we don't enhance. Look at, we had to wait for the state to bail us out for our village hall. And if we'd been doing so well for 80 years that we don't need a diverse economy, we'd still have our own sanitation department. We'd have been able to keep up with the equipment. We'd have been able to keep up with the necessary salaries. Fact is, we couldn't and we can't. We don't have Golden Beach's property values. We never will. We can't keep everything off the backs of a residential property owner. A diverse revenue stream gives us that cushion so that what happened to us a few years ago when we lost well over 20% of our value, that doesn't happen again. The other number I ask you to consider, 9 years ago when Hurricane Wilma hit, it cost about $500,000 to clean up.
$1 million.
We don't have that kind of money in reserves anymore. We've got 360, 370. We can't clean up after a hurricane. We need a diverse revenue stream.
Thank you, Jeannie. All right, any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period and move on to item 7A, sanitation transition update. Actually, before we get into that, just want to address one issue. Mr. Bernard raised 2 points, and I just want to go on the record to clarify. I think, Steve, you had mentioned there was one public meeting regarding annexation. I'm not going to read the list, but there's probably been 12 to 15 public meetings regarding annexation. So, Steve. So there's been a dozen meetings. He says there's no data. There's data available that's been available. The numbers are all there for anyone. I'm happy to meet with anyone individually to go through those numbers, but all the information is there. So I just don't want anyone to be misled by those two statements. Yes.
Good evening. Chester Morris mentioned that I sent him some stuff. What I sent him was the whole packet that we originally had for when we put the application in. So that's what he's, Chester's working off of that, which is old. It's the data that the county's working with, but it's sort of been changed a little bit in reality because the economy is changing.
Right, the revenue and the benefits to us have substantially increased.
Right,
that's what's changed.
And the manager's working to get me
perfect
more of that information.
Perfect. Okay.
Good evening. This has been really our first month of the new sanitation program with Waste Pro, and it's really been a month of learning for both Waste Pro and for us as the village. During this time, we did have Waste Pro replace one of their supervisors. They've replaced them actually with someone who I think understands our village and our standards, both those that we've had and wish to reach. and will work hard to get us there. He's shown a great effort to do that so far. So that's been one of the changes that they've made this month to help us. Additionally, I think that Waste Pro was surprised. They learned that Biscayne Park has considerably more yard trash than they had originally anticipated. We've held their feet to the fire on that, though. They're contractually obligated to pick it up. And so as of last Tuesday, they brought in a fourth truck, an extra truck, strictly for trash. So now they have 2 of the yard trash trucks, and they were able to do a much better job last week. So it's still not perfect. It's still developing, but they've proven to be a good partner and responding quickly overall. So we've had, the normal complaints. We've had some scattered waste. Orlando, who's the new supervisor, is quick to go out there with a rake or a broom as soon as he knows about it and take care of it. Additionally, we've had some missed pickups, and the Track Easy format that we're using gets that to both Gerlin, to Orlando, who's the supervisor, and to myself immediately. And that, for the residents, that's really the quickest way to get it. If I'm sitting at home on a Saturday night at 10 p.m., I'll get that Track Easy. I won't come pick up your trash at 10. Just let's be clear. But anyway, so that is really working well. I think part of it, too, is we are working to educate some of our residents as well. Some things that we have found, some problem areas, are things like landscapers coming in from other areas to do someone's yard, but they unload all the trash off their truck from previous jobs at our residents' homes. And so that's an issue. Previously, I understand that oftentimes that would be picked up for free or, by the PW staff, and now we're invoicing for them. So we've seen some sticker shock on some of our residents' faces when they, got those invoices, but we're working with them to try and keep the larger piles moving and keep the landscapers hauling their stuff out. We don't want, we don't want our residents or our neighbors' trash here for our residents. And I think that's really the gist of it. One of the things that we have done, we've noticed that some houses seem to be repeatedly missed. Part of that is a side service issue. For Waste Pro, we say side service. They, look to the side of the house when in reality the residents can maybe in the back of the house, behind the hedge, next to Cujo's doghouse, And so from that perspective, it's been really a matter of, the fine Waldo. Let's find the cans first, and then we can get them picked up. And so I think that the Waste Pro staff have done a good job in starting to learn our area, or learn our neighborhood, learn our residents' specific homes. And there's still room for improvement, no doubt, but they are working well with us. We have Gerlin here from Waste Pro. If you have questions, or if you have questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them.
Christian, thank you very much. Any questions from the commission? Vice Mayor Ross?
I do.
Oh, none. Commissioner Anderson?
I'm one of those people when I see something, that's not quite right, I usually take a picture. And I'd like to find out, is there a method with Easy Track to send the picture in? Because I believe this way everybody is looking at the same thing. I may be looking at it and saying it's horrible, and it really isn't, because my wife always reminds me of these things.
There is. Good evening, Gerlin Escar with Waste Pro. And before I answer that, I also want to acknowledge that we have a senior vice president here, Mr. Fred Woods from Waste Pro, and our brand new operations manager for residential services, Brian, and he's been, some of you have met him already because he's been riding around and working out in the field with Orlando. Orlando would have been here, some of you already have met him, but he's ill, and he wanted to, we wanted him to rest because tomorrow he's going to be out here working, so we let him stay home. But next month we'll bring Orlando so that you all can meet him if you haven't done so already. Yes, Track Easy does have a way where you can download a picture. I've actually have done it on some cases for our own purposes. what I'll try to do, and I think you and I talked about that, I have to send you, I'm going to have Jean, the lady that develops the software, give me like a little snippet to show you how to do it so that I can give it to you and also to the city so that they can put it on the website.
Right.
So that people can see, okay, this is how I can do it. So it's not just, you know, I want everyone to know that they can do that. It would be excellent because a picture, it really helps.
Because most of us have cell phones and
Absolutely.
we take a lot of pictures with them.
Absolutely. So we'll be more than happy. And again, you know, we've been working great. This is a partnership, like we said before. We've been working great with the village staff. Everyone has been very cooperative, and you know, we every week it gets better and better, and the trackeasies are less and less, and you know, and it's only been, you know, the first month. We normally say that it's what, like 90 days that, you know, to really get it perfect. So we're on track to be, you know, perfect, and we're happy and willing to be here and do anything you guys need. Okay.
Thank you, Gerlin. Any other comments? All right. I just want to also thank the residents that are here and other residents watching that, you know, everyone's been patient and most people have been reasonable in understanding that this is a transition and it's going to take some time to get up to the service that we've always been accustomed to. So.
Absolutely.
Can the residents ask some questions?
I'm sorry?
Can a resident ask a question? Just very brief.
Sure.
I know you're new, and I'm not here to say everything is terrible and we're going to get right, but one of the things that I noticed the most is that at 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, you're still doing the pickups, and very often there are things that we're missing because it's dark. Very often I have heard complaints from other residents saying that you're speeding as if to get done with the job. During the day, it's one thing, but at night, it's completely another thing. So are you planning to continue nighttime pickups?
No, that only happened the first week because we were trying really hard to finish.
Steve, let her answer the
Friday,
question.
we finished by 4 o'clock, and what we're doing is we're telling the city, the village administration at what time we're done and we're getting out. But no, we don't plan on staying here. We can't, for safety reasons, not just for the residents, but also for our employees. We can't be working at night, so we don't, and that's why we put in extra trucks and more resources to try to finish earlier in the day.
So the goal is not to have nighttime pickups?
Absolutely.
All right. Any other questions from the commission? All right, Gerlin, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Christian, thank you. All right, so we're moving on to 7B. We have a finance update, which I believe is positive news.
We have a handout.
Good evening. Hopefully you all have the handout. You're all getting it right now, so I'll just wait a minute till you all have it in hand. What we're going to do, we're going to go backwards. We're going to start with the last page and we're going to go forward. So I always like to start with the good news first. You notice that on the last page we had budgeted a surplus of $27,891 for the fiscal year ended September 30th. And I'm now projecting that we will have a surplus of $85,864 for the same period, which is a positive variance of $57,973. Now, the $57,973 is made up of two components. Our budget, are we all on the last page? You're showing the first column, you see $27,891. The second column, you see $85,864. And if you're just penciling the third, which I didn't put in, is $57,973 is the variance. Now that's made of two components. We had revenues which came in with a negative variance of $15,800, which I'll talk about in a moment, offset by lower than expected expenditures of $73,387. So we had a large saving on the expenditure side, which netted into $57,000 net increase in that surplus. If we will turn to the first page, we'll take a look at some of the revenues first. The $15,000 negative revenue variance is mainly due to the fact that we over budgeted the building permit revenues, and as a result we had a $15,000 loss. You can see there was a variance of $71,000 total for charge for services. A good portion of that was for over budgeted revenues for the permits. But remember that a portion of that is offset by the expenditures, as we'll see in a moment, on the professional services side, on the expenditures professional services. Of the expenditures, I'm going to go department by department. I'm going to give you a very, very brief summary. If we go down, we can see that under general government, the major reason for the variance is we had set up a reserve of $51,000 under the budget, but we didn't use any of that contingency reserve. So we had a $47,000 positive variance for the department. If we go down to, we're going to skip police for a second because that's going the other way. If we look at building departments, as I mentioned a minute ago, we also had a positive variance of $17,993 over budget, and that is under budget, excuse me, and that is because, as I mentioned earlier, because we had lower building permit revenues, the expenditures on the other side were also lower because we had to pay the inspectors less, which was the offset. If we turn the page and we go to Public Works, there was a variance in Public Works, for a positive variance for $21,405. Most of that was because of the departure of the Public Services Director, of course, which was unbudgeted. And for some over budgeting on equipment maintenance, we spend less than we thought on the maintenance of the equipment. Going down to Parks and Rec. In Parks and Rec, we had a $28,000 positive variance, and that was mainly due to the relocation of the ground supervisor to sanitation. That was the major reason for the variance in that department. On the other side, the police department, we had a negative $58,000 variance. And that was really due to two main factors. One was the unbudgeted resignation of the officers, and the second, as I had mentioned in a previous presentation, was the FMIT assessment for the insurance in the prior year, which was not budgeted, which was like $39,000, and that resulted in that $58,000 variance. So that's what nets to the $57,973 positive variance that we see as of the end of now. One thing you notice at the top, it says final budget before year-end adjustments. Now I've already probably completed 98% of any year-end adjustments. There still may be a few more invoices I have to accrue and some other minor year-end adjustments. So this $85,000 may change slightly before the final number comes in and we have the audit. But I think it's a positive thing, and I think the managers did a great job because we've been able to keep our expenditures way down, very nicely offset the decrease in the revenues, and have a large saving on the expenditure side.
So that approximately $85,000 will go into the reserve?
That would go back into reserves.
Great.
After the audit.
Right.
Okay, great news. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Any questions? Commissioner Anderson, good? Okay, thank you, everyone. All right, let's move on to the consent agenda. I'd like to pull item 8H.
Can I ask for some discussion on 8I?
Okay, so 8I, 8H are coming out. Anyone else?
Yes, I'd like to pull 8D.
I'm sorry, D is
D is in dog.
D is in dog.
And I wanted to pull 8C.
8 what?
8C.
C is in cat. I'm sorry?
The contract with the union.
That's Let's say C.
Okay, anything else? All right, so 8C, 8D, 8H, and HI are coming out for discussion. Is there a motion to approve the remaining items?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'm sorry, did someone say K?
No.
I'd like to pull K. Please.
Okay, so 8K is out as well. Motion by Commissioner Anderson to approve the remainder.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Ross. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll take out item 8C first. Who pulled that? Commissioner Watts.
I know that much of this contract for the employees oh, I'm sorry. Didn't put it on.
Whose car is it?
Oh, sorry. Okay. Okay, I know this is probably much of a standard contract, but there are a couple of things in it that I was wondering that we might add. Just specifically, I've gone over this with the village manager, who's answered most of my questions, but there was just on page 13, Article 12, under bereavement leave. I think for someone who death in the family, how many successive days within the state of Florida, and then and an extra day outside of the state of Florida. And it states then this is for immediate family. Immediate family is described as parents, step-parents, spouse, children, siblings, grandparents, and grandchildren. I would like to, I think that we should move into the 21st century and recognize that family is not only just blood relatives, and that family can be defined in other ways. There are people who are very close to first cousins or godparents, or for friends who are considered family. So therefore, I would like just a little addition in there, and I don't want to add. I started to add a list of grandparents, godparents, friends, uncles, cousins, first cousins, and that, I don't think that's necessary. But I'd just like to add in a phrase that says, and with the village manager's discretion, people who are close. Deceased people who are very close to the employee.
Mr. City Village Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a unique contract that you have because it's the manager's contract that's brought after the negotiations. And really what you're doing here is you're ratifying what's called under the state statutes the manager's contract. So it's been approved by all the employees, so it's unanimously approved 3-0. So they've approved it, signed off on it.
I'd like to make it better.
No, I understand that, absolutely. But it's in order to do that, you're actually, we can't really change it unless we talk to them. And why I would doubt very seriously they'd have an issue with it. I think also it may be something that you may want to, the manager may look at the actual policy for all employees, and if that then occurs, and when that occurs, maybe the appropriate time. It's a very simple change, I agree with you. But it's unique in that this has been negotiated and voted on, and now you for ratification. It's not, although it says approval, it's technically a ratification of an approved contract by the manager.
But if it's a part of the village, the employees, consideration by the village, but I would think that this contract would supersede the village policy.
What would happen then is we would simply do a simple addendum to it.
How, I don't understand.
Well, as soon as we would pass it for all of the employees. I think that's the way that most managers want to do this, where they wouldn't just give it to a union bargaining unit. The perception being, well, people are being treated not equally based if they're in a union or not. You would do it all at once and roll it out to all your employees.
Okay, so what would you suggest, a resolution that we make this a policy for all of our employees?
Doesn't management have the ability to go above and beyond the contract as long as all employees within the contract are being treated equally?
Correct.
So
that is true.
If the management chooses to show compassion for an extenuating circumstance, there's nothing that would prevent that from happening.
Correct. They would not grieve it. Although there would be there'd be a practice then that you'd have to do it consistently as you move forward. So, I mean, the contract's been, and that's the unique thing. The union rep came down here and actually took a vote, and they voted on this contract. I doubt it would be an issue, like I said, and the manager could always simply provide that to the individual employee.
Okay. Then what should be done to make that a policy for our employees?
Will the manager
legally
would
to
look
put
at
that in
that
writing
and decide
somewhere?
how to move forward if she?
I mean, we are working on improving and updating our employees' policies and procedures. And that will be coming forward at a future date to the commission, but that's just general compassion and common sense. We practice that.
Okay. Well, I would just appreciate it that when the manual is redone for the village employees, that something to that effect be placed in to this effect be placed in there.
All right, so you're satisfied with handling it?
Mhm.
Okay.
So I make a motion that we approve resolution 2014-57.
Okay,
I'll second it.
Motion by Vice Mayor Ross, second by Commissioner Anderson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Item 8D,
Hold on, 8C.
surplus property. Who pulled that?
Oh, yeah.
Right, I pulled that. I have a question on just two of the items on there that, did John Deere tractor, is that the front end loader?
The 755 is the front end loader that we replaced, that was inoperable, and the tractor lawn is the old lawnmower that Biscayne, that we recently budgeted for and purchased with us.
Okay. And the Kawasaki mule, I know that was over at the police department. Is that just dead in the water?
It's dead. The
Okay.
starter, it costs more to replace the
Okay.
starter than to keep it.
Okay. Motion to approve. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Watson, did you have a question on that as well?
No, that was the same thing.
Okay. Motion to approve by Commissioner Anderson. Second by Vice Mayor Ross. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Item 8H.
Wait a minute.
I'd like to request that this be moved to the next meeting, which I believe is a special meeting in 2 weeks. What is the date?
November 18th at 6:30.
Okay. And the reason being is that we're still this was precipitated by the requirement to have our contractors obtain insurance. And so we're still in discussions with some of the contractors to see if they're able to provide that insurance. And I understand that CAP is ready and willing to come on board, but I'd like just a couple more weeks to continue that discussion. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but CAP is willing to step in on an emergency basis for one of the disciplines whom we no longer have a contractor for.
A representative from CAP is here, and I'll let him speak on his behalf. I just want to clarify the record.
Sure.
The audit requires our contractors, our contract employees to have agreements. And a requirement of the agreement is
Thank you.
professional liability
Okay. Well,
insurance.
thank you for clarifying.
The audit is about the agreement.
Thank you. All right.
So, we're discussing it?
Yes.
Madam Manager, am I to understand that you're still in negotiation with CAP for this contract? Is that why we're pulling it?
No, we, CAP has agreed to the terms of the contract, as has the building official as well as the plumbing inspector. Those are all three agreements on the agenda.
And my reading of the contract allows for flexibility on our part if we no longer require their services or we wish to go in another direction. We have the ability to terminate with CAP.
We do, but I think we owe it to our current contractors to finish the discussions with them before going down that road.
And who is going to be doing that negotiation?
The manager.
She just said that she's done negotiating.
We're setting up hopefully a subsequent meeting with one of the contractors.
Who is setting up a subsequent meeting?
The manager, and I will attend.
I think that goes beyond what an elected official is empowered to do. I think that the manager negotiates our contracts. When it's a union contract, the attorney's involved with it, and the attorney reviews them. I didn't, in my years as a commissioner here, I don't recall ever an elected official being part of the negotiation with the manager, except when we would meet in the shade. All commissioners met in the shade, and because this body operates as one body. So we were supposed to give the manager direction, and she does the negotiating, does the boots on the ground work. And so I'm just afraid that you're...
Well, I'm just sitting in a meeting, and I think that's permitted. But you're uncomfortable with it.
I am
Okay.
uncomfortable with it, and the importance of this contract, this isn't just a cosmetic, optional fringe benefit. It means that if we don't move forward on this, then we don't have the inspectors in place to review plans or to approve permitting for a lot of major projects that go on, and people at this time of year are moving in those things to improve their homes, and we're going to have a situation where we're not going to let these people, make improvements to their homes.
No, we're speaking about 2 weeks, that's all. But I understand your concern.
Mayor, can I just, because we're talking about negotiating, can I just kind of give a little history?
Sure.
To the commission. When I came on board in December, staff had a to-do list waiting for me as I came on board. Thank you, Clerk Camara. And one of the items on that list was this outstanding issue from the previous year's audit, which was this issue of contractors needing agreements. And then we went through the process of doing our audit again, and it came up again. And throughout that time period, when I was given a heads up before the audit was completed that it would also be a finding on this subsequent year audit, I reached out to our existing building and plans reviewers and inspectors. All 4 of them had at least 3 meetings where we sat down in my office and discussed the need for an agreement. And I showed them the draft agreement. I shared with them the insurance requirements that would be required for us to enter into an agreement. These are professional liability insurance is what we're talking about. And they went away to talk about it. They came back. They were given a recommendation by me or a suggestion by me that perhaps they form some kind of limited liability association with each other and get the insurance together. I kept trying to give them suggestions and ideas. I think that's above and beyond when you're negotiating a contract, to basically tell the other side how they should come back to the table to negotiate. And 2 individuals came back, our building official who has been with us for over 15 years and our plumbing plans reviewer and inspector who has been with us for 10 years. 2 other individuals did not come back. One made it very clear that he did not wish to continue with us. So the idea of CAP is to fill a hole for the village. And that's definitely for mechanical right now, because we've been put on notice that we don't have any mechanical inspections. So there's been ongoing negotiations and opportunities for them to come forward. We're happy for all of them to come back on board, but in the meantime, this contract with CAP was a solution I came up with to kind of create an as-needed basis. It's the same thing for if our building official needs to go on vacation and he does that trip to Italy again, that we might be able to pull in someone to help out or back up. It's just this as-needed, because we were left in a situation where we didn't have backups here. We don't have a deep field of inspectors here.
If I could add on to that we have actually contracted with CAP for temporary services in the past, and it's a good relationship to have. When we needed a code inspector, they were ready to bring someone in and on the field so that we didn't have that gap and that lack of service.
No, understood, and I just don't want to enter into a contract until we have a clear picture of what we're doing, and I'm just asking for 2 weeks so that we could make that last effort. And I wasn't implying that you haven't worked hard to bring them to the table and get this done, but I just think that one more attempt, 2 weeks is not a lot of time. And I think we owe it to them to try one more time. That's all.
I'm concerned that if we have any of our residents that are being held up for, let's say, getting in the final inspection on some of these things, 2 weeks could be a long time. Maybe something can be worked out with CAP to step in now, and that while you're still talking, whomever's manager is still talking to the other building inspectors, mechanical inspectors, even though they said that they don't want to do it. So I'm kind of lost there, because they said they don't want to stay with us.
One gentleman indicated that he doesn't want to stay with us. The other is still trying to come up with a solution. The insurance, the issue is apparently that the insurance is maybe cost prohibitive, but we're looking at the manager and the attorney, we're looking at other issues to see whether there's an alternative solution so that he could remain at the village.
Well, the person who says they don't want to be, we need to get that one filled for sure then.
Correct, and CAP is here this evening, and my understanding is that they may be willing to on an emergency basis, address the mechanical, which is the discipline that we're lacking.
And because I know, like Commissioner Ross said, we've worked with CAP before, and they've always had exceptional people, especially when at code, and we sort of rated their people from them.
Twice.
So, and hired them.
Yeah, it's
So
not about CAP.
exceptional people.
CAP is wonderful.
I don't think so.
Would you like to address the commission, sir?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, and staff. I'm not quite sure what you're asking us to do. We have come forward. We have served the village in the past. We would love to serve the village again. My company, which I started 25 years ago, is focused on outsourcing building department services. Is what we do for a living. We don't do anything but this. We represent, or have represented, over 30 municipalities throughout South Dade, Dade, Broward, and a couple in Palm Beach County. We provide these services for the school boards, K through 12, Miami-Dade College, FIU, and Broward County. And we would love to work with the village. If you approve our contract today, we've always been flexible with our staff, as long as this time you don't take anybody from us. But it is a tribute to the type of staff that we have on board. We have a staff of over 100 employees that are dedicated to building department services. And in instances where you have somebody going on vacation or somebody retiring, as happens quite a bit in this business, we have got the coverage. We have, as a matter of fact, in our Dade County operation, we have 4 building officials. We have numerous electrical, mechanical, plumbing, structural, which is a very difficult trade to fill, and we'd love to work with the village. We signed a contract that we negotiated with the manager, and we're ready to go starting tomorrow if it gets executed.
Okay, thank you. Other comments, Commissioner Johnson?
What proportion of the permit fee do we pay to the inspector?
It was different portions for each previously, and what we've some were low and some were high, and what we've done is met in the middle. For example, our building official, Sal, was only getting 50% of the revenue sharing, and what we've negotiated is for everyone to meet at 65%. And that includes CAP, all of the inspectors, and bringing Sal back up to 65%. He had been higher, but had taken a pay cut when the economy took a downturn.
And what were we paying the other ones?
75%.
So 65% is a decrease for all of them.
For them, but it's an increase for the building official.
Yeah.
Now that's negotiable. No one.
Yeah.
That's what we proffered when Sal I had still at 50. He came back and negotiated up, and I rolled immediately. So.
Do you know how many dollars that is per year per inspector?
It varies. It's based on the volume.
Well, like for example.
It varies anywhere from about 30,000 to about 5,000.
And what is the insurance cost?
I don't know that for sure. You can ask Sal.
Dave, do you know? Because you said you thought it was prohibitive, or somebody thinks it is.
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't know how much it is?
No.
Are these people we would like to retain? But are we satisfied with?
They've been providing services to the village for many years. As with any building department, you get quiet complaints, you get loud compliments. That's kind of the trend in building departments. People don't want to speak up because they want to finish their projects up. Some of it has to do with processes, others have to do with customer service. I've dealt with it all since I've been here.
Commissioner Watts?
I know that when we negotiated with TAP and for code enforcement years ago, and you sent us Candido, and he was wonderful and came to work for us. But as I recall, and I may be mistaken, but the subsequent people we had were deemed insufficient, and thus we went out and hired a code enforcement officer on our own. And that's just an aside. But are the people that you have working for you, are they working full-time, or are they as a, a contract basis? Or is
Yes,
Your
Commissioner,
inspectors?
thank you. First of all, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Carlos Panin. I'm at 343 Almeria Avenue, Corvallis. I'm president of CAP Cap Government. If I recall, what happened in the code enforcement was that the village decided to go to a full-time, and it made more sense to hire your own full-time than to contract out our services, and that's what transpired at that time. It was not a matter of the employee that we provided, and as you very well pointed out, Candido was our employee at the time, decided to stay with the village.
I believe the subsequent code employees, based on the history I was given, were hired by the village, not through CAP.
Right. So it is not a reflection on our company. In fact, the last permit clerk that we sent over on a part-time basis is also an employee of the village.
Okay. But you would want a 3-year contract rather than just on an as-needed basis.
Commissioner, what we signed in negotiations with the manager is a contract equivalent to what the other 2 employees signed, which is, in fact, I think it's an identical contract. And we asked for that contract to be approved tonight. That's why I'm here.
Okay. So the people that you have working for you, are they hired on an as-needed basis? Do you contract it out, or are they full employees with benefits?
All of my full-time employees are full-time employees with benefits. They have
And to what extent? Do they supply them with health care?
Yes, ma'am. Dental,
That's not what I heard.
vision, 401k. I mean, I've got a...
Do they pay for that fully, or is it a copay?
I mean, you want a copy of
Oh,
my
I can.
benefits package? I have it here.
All right, thank you.
If you're interested in coming on board, if you're certified, we'll hire you.
Thanks.
Commissioner Jones, you had another question?
Yeah. Sal, I just wanted to ask you, Sal, how much is that liability insurance? Yours?
It's very, we're trying to find the something like 35 to 4,000.
And what about for the other inspectors, do you know?
About the same.
So there are some inspectors who would pay more than half of their whole salary from the village just to get that.
Excuse me, but if you recall, when I came on here, I was told that I had to have professional liability insurance, and mine is a little bit under $2,000. So, for I think it's with $1 million of liability coverage. So,
Yeah, but it's an entirely different discipline.
so I think 4 is a little bit on the high side, based on what I've been paying for the last 2 years.
So, Sal, so your insurance, the price you pay for the insurance, that's good for all the work you do, not just the work you do here, right?
No, I don't have anything right now, but I got a binder.
Sal, what I mean is, any inspector, you or anybody.
I thought Heidi had numbers. I thought she had numbers for the insurance. I saw them.
I've never had it. I've always been treated as an employee for most parts.
Right, but Biscayne Park is not the only place where you do inspections. No. and it's not the only place where any of our inspectors do inspections.
Right.
Okay, so the insurance that they would have to buy covers them for everything, not just for here.
Yeah, but up to this point, they've never had to have insurance.
No, I understand that. I'm just trying to figure
I
out
would say, sure.
what kind of a
it would have
burden
to
this
co- It
is.
would have to cover, sure. But most of the times, they work, with the smaller cities, they're employees, so that's how they're treated.
Okay.
So they're under their umbrella.
Yeah. And Heidi, if we were to enter into a contract with CAP, is that a backup contract, or does that replace all of our current inspectors?
No, it does not replace. What it is Article 2 says contractors to provide as-needed building department services, including
Right.
plan reviews.
They just back up our inspectors in case somebody's busy or they're away
Or
or
we
something.
we don't have a
Or a
disciplined
discipline we
fill.
don't have, right.
So, right now, obviously, we have a gap. We don't have the mechanical inspection. We have construction going on in the village. And, in order to engage CAP, we have to have an agreement. That's what protects the village and protects them, protects their inspectors. So, I'm making a motion that we approve Resolution 2014-77 and employ CAP pursuant to the contract on an as-needed basis.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Vice Mayor Ross, second by Commissioner Anderson.
I have some discussion.
Sure.
I would like to ask the manager to confer with each of the inspectors to see if it's true that adding this requirement is prohibitive to them. And if it is, that the village try to extend itself to help them pay for that insurance, whether it's to give them a little higher percentage or to help them in some other way.
Okay, any discussion on that?
I would say that we have a professional manager. I do say we have a professional manager, and that this is her job. And our job is policy. So we have to let her do her job.
Okay.
And I'm concerned because our budget, part of our budget is based on revenue coming in from building permits. And managers negotiated a contract, and I'm sure it balances out that budget. And if we start changing that, we're upsetting the whole budget, and some monies are going to have to be taken from someplace else.
Okay, I mean,
I-
go ahead.
I don't think that 2 weeks will make that much of a difference, and I think that perhaps an insurance company could be found that is not prohibitive, and we should just explore that possibility just for 2 weeks.
I agree. All right, so we have a motion by Vice Mayor Ross, second by Commissioner Anderson.
Correct.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 3-2. And this is in no way, my failure to support in no way is a reflection of CAP. You know, I just wanted a couple more weeks to deal with one of the employees, one of the contractors. So welcome.
I understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much.
Thank you.
And I'll continue to reach out to those who did not come on board tonight.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
8I, yes. Commissioner Jonas pulled 8I.
Yeah, every once in a long while, one of these kinds of issues pops up on our agenda. This is regarding a resolution that has nothing at all to do with Biscayne Park. It's in the south part of the county. My usual approach to this is that I don't like us getting mixed up in other people's business, and this would be an example of that. So I'm just saying I don't think it's something that the Commission of Biscayne Park should be engaging in this kind of resolution.
Okay, any other comments?
I have some comments. First of all, we have a resolution that governs what goes on a consent agenda. It's Resolution 2011-13. that establishes the consent agenda, and it says that it's to be used for the adoption of resolutions and other items of routine and operational business upon the advice, direction, recommendation of the village manager. So in general, it's for a lot of the things that we approved on consent. Routine contracts, things that the manager, we've already met with the manager, she's talked to us about. I don't think that the consent agenda should be used for items that are not really related to the village business. And I don't think that they should be used, the consent agenda should be used for items that the commission has not previously discussed when it's coming from somewhere besides the manager. Because I wouldn't be at liberty to call, for example, Commissioner Watts to understand her reasoning for the resolution outside of this meeting. We'd have to have that discussion here. So I shy away from putting that kind of a thing on the consent agenda. As to the item itself, while I support conservation and preservation and adopting mitigation for changes in the environment, I don't think that we have sufficient information to have an opinion on this proposed development 30 miles away from our boundaries, away from our jurisdiction. You know, I understand. I've just did a little bit of research online about it. It looks like sold 135 acres or bought 135 acres from the Fed back in the 80s, and they recently sold 88 of those acres. And that land, there's proposed development on part of the land, but almost half of it, the developer is saying they're going to dedicate to preserve. And so if you look at it that way, that land's been laid swallow all of these years. The things that it sounds like we want to protect and conserve are already in danger just from the invasive species and things that are damaging in that area because it's not managed. It's just wild. So it's just a complicated issue that shouldn't be on consent, and I don't think that we should opine on it.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Ross.
I didn't
Commissioner
know,
Watts.
I didn't put it on consent or ask that it be put on consent. I just submitted it. And I thought that actually there should be no reason why we wouldn't just keep it on consent because it's such a worthy cause. Though this is not in our next door, this neighborhood, and it's in south of us, it is critical to the environment of South Florida. And by dividing that tract up and putting a Walmart and putting other things and developing things, we will be destroying or endangering an already endangered ecosystem. There are very few rock pinelands left, and we're going to just destroy our environment if we do something. There are some endangered species that are exclusive to that habitat that will be lost. If there's not enough information, then next month I can bring this back and I will print out everything that is on the websites that I provided, but one of them is a comprehensive study and it was over 40 pages long. This is supported by the Sierra Club, by many others. And again, though this is not in our backyard, I think it being that we live in South Florida in an endangered environment, it is our responsibility to speak up on this if this is part of the values of our village. If people did not speak up and fight for lands that were going to be developed, we would no longer have an Alito River State Park, which was going to be developed. And I think that we have to stand with all other communities and try to preserve the little lands that we have and the few species that we have left, especially the butterflies.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Watts. I mean, I think it's probably better practice to have a discussion first before we move forward to the resolution. Was attorney time spent on this, or was this a resolution that you received from?
No, it was forward.
I'm sorry?
From another city.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I mean, I think it's better suited for discussion first. Commissioner Anderson, any other comments?
No.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion. Oh, I can't do that, can I?
You can do it.
Okay, I make a motion that we pass the resolution.
Okay, motion, is there a second? All right, seeing none, the motion fails. If you'd like to bring it back for discussion.
I will.
Okay.
And I'll print out all of the websites.
Okay. Item 8K was pulled by, I believe, Commissioner.
I did, and I pulled it because it's not an item that we had discussed before, and as our consent agenda resolution says, it's specifically or more directed towards management items. But that being said, I have read up on the historic preservation, the county historic preservation ordinance. I thank Commissioner Anderson for bringing the resolution, and it is, of course, in protection of home rule and a municipality's authority to control its historic preservation. So the sole purpose was it doesn't follow the consent agenda guidelines, and I'd like to see if we do this kind of thing before that we show the sponsor when it's coming from a commission on the agenda itself, so that looking at the agenda, you know where it came from.
Well, the sponsor is.
What, so you didn't sponsor, it was did Commissioner?
No, it's on the report, but I think we're gonna do this better is on the actual agenda, we'll put sponsored by on the agenda. Commissioner Anderson, Vice Mayor Ross, I just wanted to chime in. After Commissioner Anderson put this on the agenda, I received a call from Sally Heyman, Commissioner Heyman, very enthusiastic and asking for Biscayne Park to do this to support her, and reminded me of all the support that she often gives us. And it was very nice that I was able to tell her it's already on the agenda, it's already there. So she's looking forward to some support from Biscayne Park on this issue.
And this is something that directly could impact Biscayne Park, because we have old buildings here. We have to have a couple of houses that are log cabins, and I think we ought to be able to have some control over designations of historic areas, not to fall under the county jurisdiction. So what the county's ordinance is to allow municipalities to enact their own ordinances on historic areas at any time that they want. If they don't, at a particular time, it falls under the county. But that doesn't preclude a municipality to go ahead and enact their own.
Okay. I agree with Vice Mayor Ross on the procedure, but going forward, but I support passing the resolution. Is there a motion or is
No, I'd like to discuss it. I was in favor of it on knee-jerk reaction because I'd like us to do something about historic preservation, and I thought that perhaps this would be a way of getting a way around the great cost that the village manager tells us that we would need to have certain areas or houses declared historic. However, I wondered when I was reading this about what it would be the underbelly of this. Maybe that I would be reading it in one way and find out that something in between the lines provided loopholes for loads of other things. And it turns out, correct me if it's this whole resolution is because of that issue in Bay Harbor Islands, where the apartment buildings, the mid-MIMO sort of 1950s apartment buildings, have been bought, and they want to put in Trump-like towers, and thus finish off another community that once looked nice with mega towers. So I'm a little weary of this, and I'd like to do some more research on it.
Okay.
Because we could use this and end up with McMansions.
I make a motion that we approve Resolution 2014-80.
Okay, motion by Vice Mayor
I'll
Ross.
second that.
Second by Commissioner Anderson. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1. Okay.
Even though it was again.
First reading, ordinance 2014-11.
This is an ordinance of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, pursuant to Section 166.041 Florida statutes to amend Ordinance 2013-12, adopted on November 20, 2013, finalizing and adopting the annual operating budget for fiscal year 2013-2014 by amending various parts of the budget consistent with Exhibit A, attached here to provided for conflict, provided for severability, provided for effective date. Request to hold a public hearing. Approves at second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. We'll open it up to public comment. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment. Stop.
Mayor, I'm just going to recap what Finance Director Mr. Williams stated in his monthly financial update. This is an amendment to finalize last fiscal year's budget. And in last fiscal year's budget, all departments came in on or under budget except for the police, and that was due to the resignation of some police staff and unbudgeted payment of accruals. Once the audit is complete, we anticipate increasing the contingency from approximately 51,000 to 80,000 or more, and you can see that on top of page 4 of the amended budget. Staff is available for questions. Mr. Williams is here.
All right, thank you. Any questions? All right, motion by Commissioner Jonas.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Anderson. Roll call.
Oh, question?
Sure.
Sorry, just, yeah. I did speak to the manager about it. I'm not sure the number that she told me escapes me now, but I know that sanitation services have an impact on the general budget, and because they're not included from in this report as a general budget department, I wondered what the impact's going to be, if you know.
I can tell you right now that the projected loss for the sanitation project is $3,500 right now for the end of the year.
And when we discussed, it was about 500, and we just completed auditing our gasoline usage, and that's where the additional 3,000 came in, just this week.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Watts?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ross?
Yes.
Commissioner Jonas?
Yes.
And Mayor Coviello?
Yes. All right. Item 10A, Resolution 2014-80.
Oh, yeah.
This is a resolution of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, ratifying the selection and appointment of board members to the Charter Review Advisory Board, providing for an effective date.
All right, Madam Manager.
Mayor, I've provided each of you with ballots. The 4 members to be selected for the at-large 2 positions are there. You've reviewed their applications. So if you'd like to do that, I can tally the votes for you.
Okay.
Where'd she put them? Oh, no, I don't know where it is. She was in Swales? I don't know. No.
It looks like this, Barbara.
Immediately made this look like my office. Oh, okay, thank you.
Oh, you must.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Madam Manager, while that's being done, could you just announce the direct appointees so everyone's aware?
Absolutely. Mayor Coviello has appointed, I have abbreviations. Let me bring them.
Jenny Johnson-Sardella.
Thank you. Thank you. Jenny Johnson-Sardella. Vice Mayor Ross has appointed Dan Keys. Commissioner Anderson has appointed Vicki Smith-Bilt. Commissioner Jonas has appointed Brian McNulty. And Commissioner Watts has appointed David Gale.
Thank you.
Oh, boy.
Caesar? Red light.
Two. Oh, 2, sorry. I didn't think about that. You can't just vote for one. You're required to vote for 2?
You tied, and then one only got one.
Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, based on the results, we have one member selected, and then I have the next two that are tied.
Okay.
So
I'll re-vote on those.
I'll need for you all to revote, or and you can just do it by a motion, perhaps, and a selection.
You should announce who has
Okay. The most votes was Raymond Irizarry with 5 votes. Then we have Dale Blanton with 2, Chester Morris with 2, and Catherine Childress with 1. So right now, yes, Raymond Irizarry is one of the at-large.
Okay.
And I need for your selection between Dale Blanton and Chester Morris.
We're going to do it by paper ballot?
Whatever, or...
I think that's the way we did the first ones. I think that's appropriate.
So I'll get yellow paper. Thank you. Let's save paper, we'll have to put it in here.
I was going to say,
Hi, I don't have these at this hand, so if you could look it for me.
Could you please put your name, please?
Can we just make a motion to appoint the last person?
No, we're going to vote this way.
Okay.
Oh.
That's fine. I just want your name.
You got my name on this one. Thank you very much.
Mayor, with a vote of 3 to 2, it's Dale Blanton.
All right.
Motion to approve that resolution now.
I'll make a motion. Oh.
All right, motion by Vice Mayor Ross, second by Commissioner Jonas. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, congratulations to, I guess Ray's the only one here, but thank you for coming.
And Mayor, I just want to say that we have to schedule a meeting within 45 days of today's date. So I'll be looking at the calendar and reaching out to the board members.
Okay, thank you.
On a related note, when the Charter Review Committee was first formed, I reached out to Katie Sorensen, who does the Good Government Initiative courses, and she offered to come in and talk to the Charter Review Committee or Charter Review Board. So I hope the clerk maybe could reach out to her. I'll send her a note that we're impaneled now and have her come.
Okay, great.
She was at our clerk's luncheon last week, and I mentioned that, and she confirmed that, so thank you.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Sarah,
moving
if I
on.
may,
Yes.
and usually the attorney goes to those meetings, especially in the beginning of the charter review, so if that's the desire of the commission, I'd be happy to do it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Item 11A, Code Review Board proposed changes to Chapter 5. Staff, do you want to start?
The attorneys
Okay.
discuss the history of all the different versions that you have in front of you.
So this is an issue that every city deals with at different levels. Most cities will require that the property owner has to take care of the adjacent area. Most cities aren't quite as treed as Biscayne Park and the size of the tree. So we had an issue, as everybody probably recalls, a couple of years ago when there was a very, very large tree that fell. And we cited the adjoining property owner, went to the Code Review Board, and our ordinance, I believe, took care of the language. It was older language, but I believe was clear enough that the property owner should be cited. But the Code Review Board looked at it and said, you know what, it needs to be clearer for us to have the comfort level to cite. And so in that case, the citation was rejected by the Code Review Board, and the city paid over $1,000, I believe, to remove it. And so the issue came up at that time. And there was conversation from everything from, let's just clarify that language to ensure that the adjoining property owners are required to pay for those trees in the swales. And part of the conversation with the Code Review Board was that there was individuals day in and day out are getting the enjoyment of those large trees, and they're the ones that are most positively affected by those trees. But then there was also conversation about how tremendously expensive it is, and there was we actually brought in an arborist, Maria, if you remember, and we did start talking about actually determining who would pay for the trees based on the diameter, and frankly at that point I don't think there was any consensus to move either way, and the item kind of just was pushed aside for a while. So I'm glad that that this committee took a look at it again. They have their suggestions on how to proceed. The manager has looked at that, and I think has provided a memo to everybody talking about the cost to the village if you would move forward with the village being required to do the majority of the removal and pruning. And I believe the effect on the budget would be very substantial. So although there's a nice draft of an ordinance here, I do think there needs to be a policy direction of how you want to move forward, and then we can actually tighten up the ordinance one way or the other. So your choices would be that, and there are many cities that do this, that simply the adjoining property owner is responsible. You could say that the village is responsible, or you could do a hybrid of either the owner or the village is responsible, depending on the size of the trees. But the manager might want to discuss the financial implications.
Well, we provided a memo, and it's really an unknown as far as the financial implications, but we do know that there would be some. So there is some concern about how we are going to phase this in. But I do want to step away from the issue of trees in the swale and commend the board for addressing some other issues within this section of the code. The first being the clear sight triangle. They were able to acquire some drawings that are very clear. The clerk has put those on the screen and will be helpful to our code compliance officer in enforcing this section of the code. It's a very difficult section of the code. And I think something else that's important to highlight, and it's in section 5.6.1, and we talked about it when we sat down in our strategic planning workshop with the commission. And I know that Gage and I have discussed this, as well as many other people, and that's the change to requiring all cars on properties to be parked on an approved surface. And I think that's one small step that's going to lead to improving the property aesthetics and the street value of our properties here in the village. So I do think there's a lot of great things within this, but ultimately we are concerned about that financial impact to the village. The maintenance and removal of trees in the swale may cause us.
Okay, thank you. Gage, do you want to address any issues, or I think you presented last time, and this is the same draft, right?
Yeah, I don't think there were any changes to it, so.
Okay. So the issue comes down to just the policy direction as to on the responsibility to remove the trees. Okay. Comments?
Yeah, I'd like to, might as well stay up there, okay? Did your committee discuss about the hybrid that the attorney was talking about? In other words, trees over whatever the caliper is, in other words, big trees, having those being grandfathered in or not?
I don't recall, hold on, let me just check the minutes. Off the top of my head, I don't recall that conversation. I know that there was not that I can remember, actually.
Because I'm concerned on very, very large trees. They're very old. Properties have been sold probably multiple times. And I really don't think the owners, present owners, have any idea that, you know, if something happens to that tree, they're 100% financially responsible. And of course, you get into very large trees, that's a lot of money. Now, the flip side, of course, the city isn't flush with money either. But it's just, to have it 100% that the owner's responsibility on these large trees, I think we need to find some center place on that.
Is there, I mean, I think Steve Bernard mentioned it, but is there a way to, I don't know how many of these large trees or what is deemed to be large, but is there a way we can do an inventory of the very, very large trees so that we can grandfather those properties?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Because I hadn't had a chance to talk to the attorney on this. So what prompted this was the tree that fell over, that was in the right of way, and then the property owner, if I remember this correctly, challenged the legality of forcing them to pay for the tree removal.
Right, because the code is not clear.
So if we write it in here that the property owner is required to maintain the tree that is in the right of way, which is technically the village property, is that going to stand up legally, basically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and many cities are not, the vast majority have it that way, and it's a cost issue as well. But uniquely, the mayor could speak about this because he was the chair, but it was an ambiguity in that code that resulted in the board deciding it.
I mean, the way the code's written is it's the property owner is responsibility for maintenance, but maintenance is then further clarified to include mowing and cleaning up, and so it wasn't as clear as it should have been.
It's not as clear as
that maintenance includes removal of a huge tree. So that's what needs to be clarified.
So they were able to challenge it on the basis that it was not clear in our code.
Right.
So if we do have clarity in the code, then we could enforce it upon the adjacent property.
Correct.
Okay.
Mayor? Yes.
It's just going back on very large trees, whatever, of course, staff has to figure out what I'm talking about, because I'm not sure either, but very large trees. If something happens to one of those, it's either the city's going to be take the full financial hit, or the property owner. I think it would be fair to have, after over a certain caliper size, large trees, it's a 50-50. Because if it falls under that caliper size, the homeowner's going to be paying 100%. So I think it's once you reach a certain size, to give the homeowner some relief, grandfathered in, that not for maintenance, but for removal.
And that's fine. I mean, if you look at the, I know that the Chapter 8 ordinance that came up, this was a direct result actually of this tree, because actually, you know, it was the code enforcement actually that directed it.
Correct.
And actually the language that was put in here as far as maintenance goes was kind of directed from the village staff at the time, that it was something that needed to be clarified. And if you all remember, when this first came up for reading, there was a revolt about all the people that have large trees in their right of way, because it was basically making them liable for the removal. So it really does need to have, I guess, some direction from the commission as far as where do you want to go on this.
Perhaps we could have a workshop on this. We did on the fences and the changes for that. I know you've put in so much time and so much work, but I have so many questions. What is a tree that is closer to 5 feet from the swale, is that grandfathered in, or is it going to have to be taken down? And if we do the 50-50, will that then inhibit people from planting trees in the swales? I think it was Palmetto Bay or whatever it was that actually requires that trees be planted in the swale so that you have a canopy across all of the streets. So I still have loads of questions, and I think many people will not be in compliance with this. Even the house on Northeast 7th Avenue and 114th, which is beautifully landscaped, but I think that they have something that is more than grass on the swale, low plants, but it will be problematic.
As far as grass and plantings go, there is a clause in here to grandfather it out once it dies. As far as trees that are in the right of way, that were within these zones now, I would imagine we would have to grandfather them, and yes, we're not gonna take out old trees that happen to be in the wrong zone at the time.
Yeah.
The entire purpose of this was to try and grab control of the right-of-ways so that when people do want to plant trees, which is permissible in this, they get permission and the village, you know, has it's almost like a mutual agreement that we're going to take care of the tree, but you have to ask our permission to put the tree on our property.
So then anyone who wants to put in a tree would have to have a survey done to establish where the swale, the property ends and the swale.
Well, they would have to do a
begins.
diagram or a survey, yes.
Other comments?
These are just questions for Gage, right? I mean, when we have our own discussion, it'll be after we make a motion.
Sure.
Okay. No questions?
I'm sorry, no questions?
Not for Gage, no.
Oh, okay. Vice Mayor Ross?
Just one, seems conflicting language. There is the paragraph H, 5.3.4H, which says the abutting property owner is responsible for the tree and the swale if it needs to be removed.
Well, actually, H actually says you have to get permission to remove it. It doesn't say you have to remove it.
It's just that it says that you have to, if you want to remove a tree, you have to get a permit. It doesn't say you're responsible for removing it.
Oh, okay. I misread that one.
Which people violate every day.
Yeah,
And then sub I after that says tree pruning, major pruning of trees in the swale shall only be performed by the village, a qualified tree trimming company, or an arborist. So does that mean the village will be doing all the pruning?
For major pruning, yes.
For major pruning, okay.
But I mean, what I suggest is, you know, we directed this board and they spent a lot of time drafting this. So I would sort of like to have something move forward with respect to the rest of the language, and then secondly, we'll give policy direction and maybe have further discussion on that major issue, which is who's responsible and how we want to, you know, whether we want to do this based on caliper size or whatever. We can have that discussion, but I think we've got to move some of this forward. They spent a lot of time on it and hanging around.
Well, did people come to the last meeting to discuss this very many?
I'm sorry?
Did many residents come to discuss this at the last meeting? I'm sorry, I wasn't here.
I don't.
It was a presentation. I just presented it to the board.
Yeah, he went through the whole,
But not many residents really are aware of the changes that are proposed here.
I don't know if they're aware or not. I mean, I can tell you that it was.
Dave, are there any more questions for Gage, or can you accept the motion?
Anything else for Gage?
But I also think, and this is one last statement, I think Commissioner Anderson's idea of coming up with a caliber of a compromise is something that sounds like a good idea.
Okay.
Based on the attorney's input.
All right, so you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I want to move to approve this.
How about we?
To direct staff. The recommendation is to direct staff to draft an ordinance.
Yes.
I'll second
Thank you.
that.
Okay. But we also have to give direction on that one major issue, because the language in this as currently drafted is not good.
Well, I have comments too, but I just wanted to make the motion.
Okay, so
Yeah.
a motion in a second?
Yeah, so I just want to say, I think the vast majority of people who buy a property probably assume, even if they're wrong to assume it, that all the trees on the property are theirs. And where we got into some trouble with this issue a few years ago was that there happened to be a very unusually large swale in front of somebody's house. And it was so deep that a tree fairly deep on the property was actually in the swale.
Correct.
So on the one hand, I would like to say it's, in a sense, unreasonable that somebody would come forward and say, well, that's in the swale, I don't want to have to deal with it. Because I think that the homeowner, when they bought the house, probably assumed it was their tree, and they certainly got the benefit of it. In view of that assumption, I would also like to recommend that we change the measurement of swales, so we make them all the same, let's say 10 feet or whatever's a reasonable amount, and give the rest to the homeowner in every case, just so that we don't have this kind of problem.
We can't do that.
All right. Any other comments?
It's a nice thought about changing to have a uniform width of swales, but all of our utilities, like your telephone poles, electric poles, are put in the swale abutting people's property. So all of a sudden, those will be on private property in some certain stances. The city happened to be the way it was laid out, was piecemeal, so you have, your swales are all different sizes. What I do like is they're going for measurements, not from a property line, they're going from the street back. So that's taking, no matter what the width of a swale that's in front of a person's house, your step up of plants and trees are going to be uniform. So, and what I'd like to see us do is at least get consensus on parts, what's in here on parts of it, that we have a consensus on, so we don't have to keep talking about the same thing over and over again.
So there's a motion to approve the entire thing.
But there's one of the things I've already brought up as far as the caliper and stuff.
So that's the big issue, and that clearly needs to be addressed.
And so I don't see how we can approve it, and then that may be, would that be considered a material change if we?
No, this is not,
we're not doing.
It's just to move forward to draft.
Just
an
move
ordinance.
forward, so
Right.
we're not talking about the ordinance that's in here.
And between now and then,
Okay.
we can direct staff to draft something with respect to the caliper size and try to.
I'm fine with it.
Some type of grandfathering concept.
I think that we should have at least some discussion on that so that the attorney knows the language to craft to put into an ordinance. And that way, when residents come at first reading next time, they'll know what we have in mind to address those situations, those older trees.
Well, I would like to see, to hold off on the attorney writing the ordinance until next month's commission meeting to come back where the where their group has talked to staff about the caliper size and is there a way of doing it?
Okay, so you want to put this off one more time before we start drafting anything to clarify that issue and have the code review board and staff work together to bring back language on.
Right.
Okay.
Because
But we need to give them some direction as to.
Well, I mean, I don't know if if the majority commission's going to go along with my suggestion as far as, caliper size, grandfathering in after it's a certain caliper size. The city, for removal of that tree, will split 50-50 with the homeowner.
Dan, did you want to say something?
Well, yes, I'm disappointed that there hasn't been any discussion as to my suggestion that the Parks and Parkways Board that deals with landscaping throughout your community on the public right-of-way isn't, again, brought into the discussion based on your discussions here tonight and bringing up these concerns. And because there's other things in there that could be tweaked as well, okay? That quite possibly the Code Review Board would have no issues with. Things that we see problems with, that, again, having an opportunity to discuss them on the surface again. Again, we were also part and parcel with the development of this code as it is here, okay?
So you participated in that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So that was a lie that Judy spewed, okay, that we were not.
But you want further input.
You know what, I think that, good people can sit down at a table and that, we have somebody from the staff there that has concerns, already looked at this and is considering costs of so forth. For instance, if you tweak the issue, one of the reasons why we were making the village responsible for maintaining the trees, okay, the discussion took place, was because if you let people take care of the trees on the right-of-way, some of them will butcher them and cut them down and not do a good job of that. You can say that you can also put in requirements that they do it in a certain way, which is something we might want to do, okay, if we do make them responsible for it. all right? You know, I mean, there's just, now that you brought this issue up, we knew this was gonna be an issue, okay? The two boards that put this thing together, okay, our board also worked on it and has had issues with this issue for 10 years, okay? And it's getting to this point because of an ordinance, because we've been urging it for 10 years. You know, and I hate the idea that we're seen as being as an adversary to another board in the commission, because that's not the way it is.
Okay. All right, any other comments from the commission? Yes.
I do appreciate all the work that all the boards have put into this, but I don't feel comfortable kicking it back to the boards again to take another whack at something that we decided, or looks like we're trying to decide as a policy. Where do we give relief to some of those properties that have very large trees on them? I think that the best course of action would be to put it now in the hands of our attorney. If we want to say, okay, don't bring it back for a first reading just yet next month, maybe next month we have the full draft put together by our attorney that addresses some of the policy issues that we've discussed here now and incorporates those.
But is there a consensus to do what Commissioner Anderson said, is sort of a draft something with respect to caliper size and grandfathering? Is everyone in agreement with that?
I'm not.
No.
You're not, okay, are you?
I think that there should be some relief where there's a very old tree, which may, as we speak right now, be already in decline,
Okay.
and then to, you
So
know,
you're okay
next
with-
year have forced that into someone's budget.
So you could potentially be okay with that concept? Okay.
Yeah.
And are you all okay with that?
I think that we truly need more discussion on these, and again, I'm
We
really
will have
grateful,
more
and I think that the public should know, and people who have properties that will be affected by these changes need to weigh in on this, and I really do think that we're rushing this through. I mean, we took a lot of time with fences and boats and public disclosure or whatever, and workshops, and I think that even though we'd like to get this thing done, I think that we need to discuss it more.
Okay, and there's going to be 2 more public hearings for discussion.
I think
So
it's
we'll get the word out. All right, any other comments? Are you okay with the concept of
I'd really like a
grandfathering?
workshop. I think that something should be grandfathered in, yes.
Okay, good. So, all right, there's a consensus with that, so is there a motion?
The thing is, if people don't know,
I'm sorry, we don't need a motion, but is the consensus to have staff, turn it over to staff, have them draft something, bring it back to us for discussion? With
Not
that-
for first reading yet, is that what we're saying?
Well,
Yeah.
the motion was to bring it for first
Yeah.
reading.
you know, but again, if people don't know, and we're thinking someone that you helped, Dan, with a tree in the swale near where you live on 10th and 118th Street. If they aren't aware of the fact that this huge tree that's been in their yard for, what they think their yard, but it really is a swale, just out of the blue that they're going to have to be responsible for $1,000 or $2,000.
That's the whole concept that we're
I know that,
establishes
but then I think that it should be widely advertised so that everyone knows what's going on. I think that we have a tendency to just say, let's push things through without.
Commissioner Wallace, the flip side of it that you were mentioning, this big tree that they think was in their yard, that means they would be 100%.
Yeah, but if they knew it was in the swale
responsible.
the whole time.
That's the reason why, you know, having things grandfathered in, and my feeling is like I say, splitting it 50-50.
Okay. So, yeah, well, I agree. We'll get the word out and make sure that the next public hearing, and maybe even more than 2 public hearings. I mean, we're just moving the ball forward and then making some progress.
It's just I would prefer not to go to the expense with our attorney of actually drafting an ordinance before this comes back, so then we can make sure, so we can give exact direction.
So you're not in favor of moving forward with it?
I'm moving forward to go ahead and get what I've discussed about the caliper solved.
Okay. Is that all right with everyone?
I think that the language is best crafted. It's going to be tricky, and the language is best crafted by our attorneys. I appreciate the work the board has done, but this was their recommendation. And we're falling into the same trap that we fell into with the fence ordinance. We kept kicking it back to the board and asking them to make revisions, and that moving the ball forward is to give it to our attorney.
Yeah. But we finally made the right decision in that
right.
case.
No, we will. Commissioner Anderson, I mean, the bulk of it the bulk of it's gonna have to be incorporated into an ordinance eventually. So
Right.
we're doing, whether we do it on the front end or the back end, but
Correct.
we're still gonna have a lengthy discussion. So is that, are you okay with that?
That's fine. The only issue I have is what I've mentioned.
Okay. All right, so the consensus is move forward with the draft resolution. Sorry?
There's a motion made.
I'm sorry. Motion by Commissioner Jonas. Second?
To direct staff to draft the ordinance.
Yes. Second by Vice Mayor Ross?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
How are they may I just
With-
ask how what ordinance they're drafting based on the trees?
It's gonna be consistent with
Based
your
on the
discussion.
removal?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, what motion did you make?
Can you repeat the motion?
Yeah, I made a motion to bring what we have here forward to the staff, to have them draft an ordinance. I don't know what ordinance they'll draft, because I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, no, okay, so that's your motion? Did you
Yeah.
second the motion?
Yes,
Without the provision?
and then we had discussion.
No, yeah, go consistent
And then
with
we
the
had
discussion.
discussion.
I know, but his motion is not, he's not incorporating that discussion.
It's not.
True.
Then, well, the important part of having that discussion incorporated is that there seems to be a majority of the commission in favor of that policy change.
Correct.
And if we don't put that policy change in the ordinance, people will not understand that we are trying to afford some mitigation.
You just need an amendment to your motion.
Correct. Commissioner Jones, will you amend your motion?
No, I want you to vote it down. These are trees on people's property. They buy the property thinking that these are their trees. They treat the trees as their own. The property is assessed in part because of how large it is, whether it's technically theirs or not. And I think people should take a little bit more responsibility and not think of the trees as theirs until the day they fall down.
Okay, so you're not gonna amend your motions?
No.
You still have a second on your motion? Or do you withdraw?
We have a second, we can't withdraw it, we'll
Okay,
have to
so
vote.
motion second, can we have a vote on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. Any new motion?
I make a motion that we direct staff to draft an ordinance in accordance with the discussion that we've had here, which incorporates some mitigation for those larger trees that are in the swale.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Second, motion by Vice Mayor Ross, second by Commissioner Anderson. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Motion carries.
Motion carries 3-2?
5-0.
No.
Oh, 4-0.
No.
Sorry.
There's so many other issues in here.
Okay, moving on to 12A, discussion for an ordinance to amend the charter for referendum to accept annexation proposal as requested by Commissioner Watts.
Well, I know many people have spoken of this already tonight. Last January, I had put in a request that we consider having a straw ballot regarding possible annexation, reviving Commissioner Anderson's suggestion of May of the previous year. And but then annexation was voted for. And I sort of dropped the idea until any idea that, and I can't bring this back to the same commission of having a straw ballot. But given the fact that we are now paying lobbyists so much money that we've contracted, that didn't come into the equation before, the amount of money that we would spend for Becker and Polikoff. And then the numbers, and I know that the numbers, the old numbers, we've considered numbers went from just doing the commercial or just doing the commercial in the 2 sets of apartment buildings, but now we're doing 2 sets of the apartment buildings plus the commercial plus all of the residential, which wasn't in.
That proposal is,
Yeah.
we've had meetings, that proposal's
Yeah.
been the same. That's what the application was
All right.
submitted based upon.
Okay.
That's what was already approved by the commission. I mean,
It wasn't,
make
I
sure
don't,
you state the facts.
I disagree. But what I will say is, given the numbers that we've just received, and the numbers that we received months ago, it indicated to me that it would be at least 4 or 5 years before we just broke even. But now with the numbers that seem to be much improved, based on the increase in property taxes, but the formulas used state that the salary, the services to be provided is $167,350,000. This quote, this is a salary for 2 police officers and 1 code compliance officer, based on the current budget. Now, to have 2 police officers, if that would be 80 hours, okay, in a week there are 168 hours. So it seems to me that we would probably need 2 more police officers to serve that area. So that these numbers, and I figured if we say that another code officer will be about $35,000, we would say that an extra 2 policemen would be 132,350. And in the end, if we add that to the cost of the providing services, we would have the cost for the net gain. Okay, we would have to add. We'd have to add $134,000 approximately to the net gain in one case, but we'd have to deduct. And in the case of the millage rate not going up, it would come to a negative of $134,075 a year if the millage rate stays the same. So we're looking at a period of years of more debt.
And I understand what you're saying, but you're a very, very intelligent person, but you're not a law enforcement professional. The numbers, which granted are estimates, from our professional police department, they estimated 2 officers to handle that area. So we're relying upon them for that information. That's not to say that if we're successful and we annex this property that it's not going to require more. Nobody knows that, but that's what they estimate, and we have to rely upon that. We're not.
So where were the other police officers? Where were the other, essentially, 168 hours in a year, and we've got 2 police officers, that's 80 hours. Would we pull police officers from our Biscayne Park to cover that area, or would we hire 2 additional ones?
Okay, but this application was approved already. We're not, the item that you put on here was discuss whether to amend the charter. We're not rehashing all the factual information that's been out there for months and months and months.
Okay, but what I'm thinking is with the new numbers, I think we've got problems, and I think again, we need to. I think that you didn't accept that we have a poll, but I think that we should now, if there's no choice for a poll, that we need to amend the charter and get a feeling and get the residents to vote as a referendum on this. If we cared enough to do that with the changing of the voting date, and I said, oh, that's so important that we need everyone's opinion. I think that this will substantially change the nature of Biscayne Park, and I think that it behooves us to have now a binding vote because of the seriousness of the undertaking that we
Let me
are
ask you a question.
approaching.
How will this change the character of Biscayne Park? The triangle of our village of homes, how will this change the character of that?
Oh, it'll change the nature of our population. We've increased a lot of renters, and I have nothing against renters, but that whole dynamics of homeowners versus renters will change dramatically. We will have to change our code or have 2 codes, and I don't think that's legal. And then when we can think of perhaps then more people move in there and decide to run for office. All right. Well,
Commissioner, what do you mean 2 codes? You're saying things without facts. There's not going to be 2 codes. There's going to be 1 code.
Well then.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rox.
Okay. Yeah, there will be 1 code, and usually within that code there are designated areas depending on the features and the use of those properties. But I wanted to say just a couple of things to correct some of the things that were in the memo in our agenda packet, and to correct some of the things that were said during public comment earlier today. Somewhere in the memo, Commissioner Watts says that on the recommendation of Anna Garcia, our former manager, somehow we decided not to go forward with the workshop. And I'm not sure where you're getting that from, because we actually did have a workshop. It was led at the time by our acting village manager, Maria Camara, who does such a great job as a clerk that we decided to put her in a more difficult spot for a couple of months. And in fact, I had a conversation with Anna recently, and she wrote me an email on annexation where she emphatically supports it for the village. She thinks it's extremely important for us to go forward with that application. So I just wanted to make that record clear. And I'm sorry, this isn't about the elections and changing the elections, but that's somehow been tied with that. I was the prime reason for bringing about that change in the election date so that we now elect our local Biscayne Park commissioners at the same time that the rest of the county votes. And that was so that we can have more people be part of the process. When I first started working on that, I was approached by a former commissioner with the idea back in the spring of 2010. I don't know, Fred and I, we might have talked about it when I was commissioner, when I was the mayor, and he was a private citizen. But my motivation, my initial motivation, was a conversation I had with a former commissioner in the spring of 2010. When I first brought that ordinance, I brought it as an ordinance for the commission to approve the change of the date of the elections, as is allowed within Florida statutes. I drafted the ordinance myself and I brought it that way, sensing that I wasn't going to get the majority of the commission to agree with me on that. Alternatively, I said, okay, if you don't want to sign an ordinance to do it yourselves and save ourselves and save the city a lot of money, let's put it to a vote of the people. And that's how it became a ballot measure, and people voted overwhelmingly in favor of changing the election. We could have saved ourselves, we could have saved the village quite a bit of money had we enacted an ordinance and made the change.
Well, then I think we should do the same with this. This is very important, and I think that the people need to be listened to. I think if they vote for annexation, we'll go for annexation. But there's so many costs that are coming up now, and the mere fact that the problems that we have with our application package, which are many, but we still are going forward with spending money, I think that at some point we should have updated and finalized numbers, and that the people should be able to vote on this.
Excuse me, I think that people did vote on this in December when they elected the commission that's sitting here today. As far as having final numbers, we're going through a process. It's a very fluid process with the county. We don't have final numbers because they don't have final numbers to give us yet. This is it's sort of a smoke and mirrors, trying to make something out of nothing and trying to incite where there's no need to do that. We can proceed with our application process. We can get all the information back. We can look at it again. I'm sure that we'll talk about it almost every meeting, if not every other meeting, because it is a fluid process and it needs to run its course.
All right. Commissioner Jonas, anything?
Yeah. Over the years, I have not infrequently approached people about running for commission. And these are generally people that I thought would make great commissioners because they're smart, they're dedicated, and I will tell you, it's very hard to get anybody to agree to run for commission. People that I believe would have made great commissioners do not want to do this. It's a big responsibility. You have to make decisions that other people don't want to have to make, but that's the job. As a couple of people have pointed out, we have already had this decision in terms of annexation. And this matter is not so much about annexation per se, or maybe it's intended to be, but it's about farming this decision out to somebody else. The people who don't want to run for commission are not then welcome to tell the commissioners how they have to vote once they've decided they don't want to take the responsibility to do it. If they want that responsibility, they're more than welcome to sit here and have it. Having said that, for years, Ted Walker wanted to annex territory to our west. Talked about it. People didn't want him to, or maybe they didn't want to, but we didn't do it. And culminating in 2005, when Ted Walker was still here and still on the commission, I think he was mayor then, there was a charter review committee that reviewed the entire charter and recommended any change they wanted to recommend. Having known that Ted Walker was talking a lot about annexation, that committee did not decide that if there was ever to be a decision about annexation, it must be made by referendum by the residents of Biscayne Park. So it isn't. Having said all that, in the past few years, we have talked about exactly this annexation. And there was nobody on the commission who said that this was not a reasonable commission topic. Last year, there were commissioners, a majority of them, who voted not to go ahead with an application, and those commissioners did not say at the time that they thought it was illegitimate for the commission to make this kind of weighty decision. They decided to make it themselves. So it's really very unclear as to how it is that today there's any decision, and the person who offers this is one of the commissioners who voted last year in a definitive way not to go forward with the application. It's unclear to me what this change of mind is all about. Now, one of the speakers in public comment today said that perhaps the issue was about people just wanting to get their own way. And perhaps that is what this issue is about. Perhaps the person who brought forward this topic is afraid that if it's left to the commission, she won't get her own way, and she's hoping that somebody else will bail her out so that she can get her own way. I don't think that's a legitimate way to do it. We don't have a town meeting form of government here. We have commissioners. They were elected. In December, 3 of us were elected. 2 of us were very open about saying that we favored annexation, and you can be sure that that question and that topic came up very frequently. The 3rd person who was elected in December merely said that he didn't have enough information. He never told anybody, at least not to my knowledge, that he secretly was opposed to annexation. So I think we have to assume that the public have spoken. They had a number of choices in a number of ways over the years, and they didn't take them. Now, the other issue is that a couple of other people in public comment tonight said that they believe that annexation is the right thing to do. If that's true, and knowing that at the moment it appears that a majority of this commission also thinks it's the right thing to do, what do we do by canceling the deal in a sense and farming the decision out to the residents at large if they don't recognize that it's the right thing to do? And I will tell you that over time I have begged and pleaded repeatedly with people to offer an alternative. We need the income. We have to have it. We are not thriving at all without this income. And nobody has offered a remotely viable alternative. You can't just say, I don't want to annex. You have to say, I appreciate what the problem is. We need money, but I don't want it to come from annexation. I want it to come from something else. If you don't say that, if you don't offer an alternative, then you kind of take yourself out of the equation. And I think the answer is we leave it the way it is. This is a train that's moving already. Nobody has made a reasonable attempt to stop it, and I don't think it should stop.
Okay. Yes.
I agree with one of the things Commissioner Watts said as far as about the police. What I would like is for maybe next month's meeting is a full explanation from our chief of how many officers he needs. Is he planning to patrol there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? What is his plans? We have a new chief that sort of inherited this particular number, and I'd like to hear from him, and maybe he feels the number really needs to be changed a little bit. So, which has nothing to do with the application, but I'm just uncomfortable with that number of how he's planning to handle it over there. And then also I'd like to see, so the rest of the commission could understand the total costs, which would include vehicles that wasn't originally in there, and including whatever it may be for our code officer's vehicle. I know that that's not part of the application, but in reality, these are expenses we're going to be paying for.
Okay.
Not to mention increased village staff.
All right. Any other comments? No? Okay. All right, moving on to 12D. It's just a discussion item, there's no,
But it's clear that
Someone can make a motion, I suppose.
any motion? It's a discussion. Is there a consensus to move forward with an amendment to the charter? Is there a consensus? No?
I would like to.
No?
No, I just want to ask the staff.
Right, and
for-
that was noted, so I think that's.
Okay, so there's
Okay, so that.
no desire.
Doesn't move forward. All right. Item 12B. All right, this was requested. I've deferred this a couple times, but there's been a number of people that have come up and have questioned whether we have sufficient notice to residents on issues that come before us, and I just think it's time to establish some type of uniform policy so that we can address those, so everyone knows what to expect in the way of notice and information. We've been doing a great job, in my mind, getting the word out, but I think we need to have an established policy so that it's clear to everyone. So, you know, obviously one component is the e-blast that we do. Not everyone gets emails or uses computers. We have to come up with some other way to do this without having to deliver flyers on every doorstep every time we decide an issue. So I'm open to ideas or concepts.
Mayor?
Yes.
Sometimes the only way to get the information out is actually by the flyers, but in reality, that's a very expensive proposition. So what we would need to do is maybe have something set up as tiers. In other words, if it's something real important, whatever that
That's the
statement
problem.
is.
That's the problem. I mean,
But some kind of a guidance that staff can figure out what level certain things are where we definitely need to have flyers sent out, or maybe if there's time on that, we have discussed it, and maybe we can direct staff at that particular time. Yes, we need to go ahead and spend the money for a flyer to be sent out on this particular thing. I know it's impractical to do it for everything. That's.
I mean, you know, what I was thinking because I think it's very difficult to determine what's real important and what's somewhat important. So I think maybe if you do a flyer initially saying, okay, a flyer to everyone's doorstep saying this is what we're going to do from now on with respect to
Right.
noticing everyone, and maybe we have, like I mentioned in the past, some type of pickup box where everything that goes out by e-blast can be picked up, a hard copy can be picked up at different points around the village, and all that information is given to the residents by a flyer, so they know going forward, if I want to stay interested and stay informed, I'm going to need to go up and pick up, check this periodically and pick up a flyer.
Do you have any idea what the egret charges if we printed our own flyer just to be dropped into the bag for Biscayne Parks distribution?
For the once a month egret? I don't know, but we can certainly find out.
Because that might be something that may be practical. That's a monthly thing.
Yeah,
Coming.
that's a good idea, yeah. Any other comments?
What types of things are we talking about that, what types of things are we talking about to put into a flyer? Are we going to put our agenda into a flyer? We're going to,
No.
I'm trying to understand whether they're leisure activities, they're commission actions, what?
Well, I think it's going to be, leisure activities we already do, but, we're obviously not going to put the consent agenda or approval of minutes, those types of things, but I think we're adult professionals, we can sort of gauge what's important and what's not, and err on the side of caution, and if it's an issue that's going to impact residents and their properties, then I think we should include it.
Mayor? One suggestion is, because we're doing it far enough in advance, what about having a listing of all ordinances that are coming forward? It could be between the first and second reading.
Just so that people know, are aware of those
Right.
issues, I think. But one thing, if
Code amendments, things of that nature.
if you were to do that, you'd have to do several flyers in advance, just to tell people that henceforth this is our program. Because think of how many flyers that we've sent out with for Waste Pro. And even I put my garbage out on the wrong day, so to get people into the mode of, you have to go to the village hall or the rec center to pick these things up, or look in the egret, because people won't. And I think that it's important that all of the ordinances, these ordinances are things that materially affect property values, the life of people in the village. I think people do need to know these things.
Heidi, what is the cost problem? Is it the problem of having our public works people go around to drop this off at everybody's house?
Xeroxing. Xeroxing and paper is an awful expense if you've done that, and then also we've lost some public works employees.
It's about $50 for a flyer for us to make.
I'm not asking you the cost. I'm asking you, what is the nature of the problem? Is it taking people off their other jobs to go around and deliver these? Is it the cost of the paper and the toner?
I don't think there's a problem. We're not resistant to do it. We have generally done it when it's been warranted.
No, I know, but didn't you say something about that it would be expensive to do this, or did I mishear you?
I don't recall saying that. It takes away from staff time. Our public works staff are the ones who deliver it door to door.
So in that case, I'm thinking of Bob's use of the word tiers, and I think Barbara has in the past talked about block captains, and I wonder if we printed this stuff up, if there would be a small number of people Maria could call, they could then call a larger number of people. Each of those people could come over to Village Hall and pick up a stack of these things, and it's their responsibility to hand them out on their block.
And there will be a cost. I mean, I tried to get this put into the budget because I thought we would need more flyers for this kind of information, and we didn't put any money in the budget for this.
Well, what I've just heard, it's one flyer is $50. Okay, now what we need to find out is how many man hours has Public Works utilize, and what does that cost?
I'm not suggesting using
Right, is one person, two people? In other words, because they don't work for free.
Five people.
And they don't work for free.
Correct.
So that's a dollar amount.
And the last time, I mean, this includes everyone from a supervisor to pulling from the park staff as well to do it.
So if we could come up with $1, not right now, but I mean, if we could, so we know, okay, for us to distribute a flyer, it's going to cost this much in man-hour staff time, dollar-wise. Then if we find out what does it cost to go ahead and insert it into the egret, at least we got some comparison. Or what Commissioner Jonas is saying, if we get enough volunteers, but I find with volunteers sometimes people have an excuse or they forgot to do it or whatever.
And look, I just want to maybe clarify, maybe I misspoke, but the purpose from my perspective is not to amend, not to, publish everything we consider and have to give notice of everything we do. My goal was just this, we do the e-blast, just to set a policy as to how we deliver what is in your deference as to what needs to be sent out, or we can, the commission can even notify you that we think this is important, why don't you do an e-blast. But it's more to set the policy of, okay, we do the e-blast, but how about people that don't have computers? So what can we do to address, send them the information? It's not to change that, the fact that we have to now send out every single ordinance that we consider and put it on everyone's doorstep. I mean, I think people need to take responsibility for themselves. If they want to get involved, they get involved. But at least there's some, there's a location where they can pick up information if they don't have a computer. That's really the purpose of it.
So we just earlier this evening approved ordinance number 2014-11. That means that up until today, in the year 2014, we approved 11. Two of those were for setting a millage and the budget, and then one other one was a budget amendment. So that means we had 8 actions that we took that were some other not budget thing. I was trying to pull it up on here, but I can't access to see what they are.
Right.
More like 7 were. 7?
But then there are significant things that aren't ordinances.
Right.
I mean, I didn't get around to sending an email about the lobbyist until the day before, because I mentioned it to some people on my block and who were very distressed. that they didn't know about what was going on. And I think it is a tough thing to decide what people consider important and not. And also even often with the email blasts. I mean, I like the idea of tiered things, but there are some things that are very important that are not ordinances.
Well, I like what the mayor was saying, that we go ahead, it's some system, what kind of system to get the information out? And I think then it'd be up to us, knowing each month at the commission meeting, if there's stuff that we feel as a body that needs to be distributed by paper, we can then let staff know. So, but it's up to us to figure that one out. And it may be that, it may be a number of months, whatever's going on, email is sufficient, plus, you know, things hanging on bulletin boards.
Though also what I've read now is many people are not using email, but going onto their social sites, you know, Facebook and all of that. I don't know how many hits we get on our various Facebook pages, the rec center, but maybe we should consider doing that. I don't look at that much myself, but.
Can I suggest, since I don't think we're going to follow your idea of volunteers spreading out the flyers, and can I suggest that maybe we expand our newsletter so that we have to decide, it's a policy-wise, decide what it is we want to put out there, and then maybe leave a page or two in the newsletter to put ordinances that are, you know, in the pipeline or just passed.
But it's not.
And some other.
3 times a year, it's not
frequent
enough.
That's the problem. Like, what if something comes up in between, and we want to get a paper, you know, we want to get it out.
It's quarterly, isn't it?
Quarterly.
No, it's 3 times a year.
3 times.
3
a year.
times. This is why I was suggesting to see about the egret.
The problem with a lot of those flyers, I do it in my household. I know from talking to my neighbors, they do it too. You walk in the house, you pick it up, and you throw it in the recycling bin. And then when you have too many of those things coming at you, just like email and spam mail, it gets totally ignored. So the message that we want to deliver is not having the impact.
And that's why if you have a location, if you notify people that, okay, this is a location where if you don't have a computer, you can pick up information, it's going to attract people that want to be engaged and want to be interested.
Mayor,
Well, isn't
I'm
Village
gonna
Hall the
I
place
wanna-
to do that?
I
mean,
do
don't
wanna
people know
remind
Village
you-
Hall's the place?
I'm sorry. I just want to remind you that per state statute, we post all agendas around the village. It's posted at Public Works, Village Hall, and the Recreation Center. So we do.
Yeah, nobody goes
Okay,
to
all right, well,
Public
look.
Works.
What we can do, to go back to your original point, is for every email blast that we send out, we can create a binder or a clipboard that would be stationed both at Village Hall, out in our lobby area, and the lobby area of the Recreation Center, that we will archive every email blast that is sent out in those books. So if someone wants to come by and look at them, they will.
I don't think that's sufficient because many people are very busy and their lives are consumed with other things, and then all of a sudden they hear that there is, yeah, I know we're all busy, but it's like before, I mean, how often does a regular resident look at the Biscayne Park homepage? Unless you're on a committee, or unless you're, you know, I just think that people won't think to go look at that on a regular basis, a weekly basis.
People have to do something. They have to take some level of responsibility.
All right, why don't we move forward and give it some more thought. If anyone has any ideas, maybe we can come back and.
Mayor, I just want to commend you to go ahead on something simple. It became complicated, but your thought of trying to have some kind of a policy, I commend you on that.
Thank you.
I still think it's a fairly good idea to have, and I see other cities do it in their newsletter, things that were passed by your commission. And if we have notice in advance things that are coming up, even if it's only 3 times a year with the newsletter, we should dedicate a page to that.
Yeah.
And maybe we can start, maybe, you know, start promoting the newsletter, like seeking advertisements for the newsletter and try to get more revenue from that, and maybe eventually expand the newsletter to maybe monthly, if it brings in enough revenue with advertisements. I know the egret, just by changing the format of the egret, it used to be a newspaper type format. By changing it to a magazine type, I think the revenue was tenfold. So.
Of course,
All
they're
right.
killing more trees.
Item 12C, board member application, Public Art Advisory Board. All right, this is, whose item?
We have an application for a member of the Public Art Advisory Board.
Ah, yes. All right, is there a motion?
I make the motion to accept this application.
Okay.
Oh.
This is for Veronica Dashi.
That's it.
She is as a bachelor degree in fine arts.
I'll second that.
She's an art teacher. Perfect. Second by Vice Mayor Ross. All in favor?
Yep.
Aye.
But you should
All right.
see her art.
Item 12D. This is my item. We have to, for next year's Miami-Dade County League of Cities, we have to designate a designee for the Village of Biscayne Park. So is there,
I've been serving as a designee this year.
Okay.
It needs to be somebody that goes to
the monthly meetings?
the monthly meetings. I would nominate our mayor if he's able to attend the monthly meetings.
Okay. I am able to attend.
Okay, I'll second.
All right. Everyone okay? All in favor?
Yes.
Okay.
Aye.
And is there an alternative, I think?
Alternate?
I can serve as the alternate.
Excellent, because you routinely go to those
Yes.
as well. Okay, perfect. Everyone
Do we have to
comfortable with
vote
that?
on the alternate?
All right, item 12E, strategic plan with Commissioner Jonas.
Yeah, we've had two of them in the past several years. Both of them have been off-site, not really open to the public. And I think not only that it's time for another one, but I think we should expand the concept. I think we should bring in all interested people in the village. We should probably have it on-site. We should have all of the boards represented, either by their chair people or by everybody on the board and anybody else who takes an interest, so that we can begin to develop more of a coherent and agreed-upon plan that the village will adopt for how it wants to see itself and how it wants to move forward. I should say I've also checked with one or two people who mediate these things professionally, and there is a cost. The estimate is somewhere between $2,000 and $5,000.
And are you proposing that this happen this year, or just in the future? Or you're not really?
2015.
Okay.
Well, right now, in this existing budget, there's no money, so it would have to be discussed at the next time. And this looks awful open-ended, because there's no end date, and, you know, to talk about what our culture is. I mean, it's so vague. This is extremely vague of what this is. The other thing I'm looking here, every time we have elections, the new administration that gets elected may look at it and say, you know, it's not exactly the direction we want to go in. So I think it needs to be a little bit clearer, because to me this is too vague for me to, you know, to get into.
But what you're seeking is just to expand the scope and the invitees, although it was a public meeting, but
Well, it was, but it was off-site. It wasn't
so you just want to
convenient.
expand the scope and make it more accessible,
Right, this is something that many municipalities do. They should do it from time to time.
Okay.
But I'm curious to know whether Bob objected to the other two strategic planning sessions that happened in the past few years, also because they were vague, as strategic planning sessions should be.
I didn't see a real benefit. The charrette is a different story. But the planning sessions, I really, you know, we're dealing with a severe erosion of revenue. I think if we want to have something, then we need to figure out how to stop our revenue erosion. Now, I'd be for that one. But to go ahead and to spend money to decide what our, you know, I don't know exactly what it is, a culture or whatever. No, I just don't see a point, you know, any advantage in that.
Let's come by, yeah.
Commissioner, Vice Mayor Ross?
Yeah. The last two strategic planning sessions that we had, they were off-site, yes, you're right. But I think that they did bring about a document where the commission that participated, we were able to put forward priorities, things that we are interested in. And in fact, one of those documents, I think actually both of them were used in the administration used it in putting together the budget and setting aside monies to try to address some of those priorities. So I think it's an important thing to have because it guides the administration. Even when the commission changes, I could tell you between those two strategic sessions that were different commissions, a lot of the goals were the same. You know, we all want to maintain and improve our property values. We all want to fix our streets. We all want lighting at the rec center. You know, a lot of those things just are constants that we have to keep as a priority until we reach that goal. I think that it's a really good idea to recognize some of the boards, all of the boards, and bring them into that process. They do a lot of important work for us, and why not? Why not to have them be part of it? I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, our manager and staff did a great job on organizing the last one. Why the cost? $5,000. What is that?
Because there are people,
professional?
yeah, there are people who are professional in doing this.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. I tend to think I'm okay with expanding the scope and inviting all the board members and anyone else that wants to attend, but maybe we could do it in-house. And maybe down the road when we have we have a better.
Maybe there's someone, I know at least one person in the village that does motivational speaking and seminars, and maybe that person or someone like her can guide us through a process so that staff's not caught in the middle of, you know, trying to referee the session.
And maybe we can look for someone that's, you know, maybe it's not this, you know, you're just putting these numbers out, but maybe we can find someone that's less expensive. And I wouldn't close the door on that concept because I think it's good. As a professional, they can offer something. So maybe we just revisit it the next time we're planning for next year's session.
Can we maybe ask staff, I mean, this will be something done in 2015, several months from now, maybe ask staff to explore someone out there in the community that could help us, guide us through a strategic planning session?
Okay.
And maybe the ideal time to be able to have the session would be in the spring before you start working with budget, I think.
Okay. Yes.
Go on.
Because the way this was presented, it was like an ongoing kind of a committee. Now it's morphing into like a strategic planning session. So it's really a one-time meeting.
That's what it says, Bob, strategic planning session.
So, well, and you open it up to so many different people. I think going back of when we had the original code review committee, there were so many members on it, they didn't get anything done until finally enough members dropped out.
You know, I think that we had the meeting last January, was it, at your offices? Okay, yeah, and we've got the strategic plan from about 3 or 4 years ago, and Commissioner Ross brought it back, and I finally found it. And many of our goals were exactly the same. We still haven't achieved them. We've got so much on our plates for this next year, and if your annexation goes through, we're going to have to decide on a whole different set of priorities for our strategic plan. So I think it's premature to do this, and I think that right now spending another $2,000 to $5,000 is just beyond the pale.
Maybe the problem is commissioners who just tell this to themselves and don't get any buy-in from the rest of the neighborhood.
I mean, this year, we already had a planning session.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do? Start doing, have a planning session every year?
And change, and when we haven't achieved any of those things?
Why don't we revisit the structure of the strategic planning session when it's on the eve of that session?
It's fine.
We can discuss.
Yeah, until we get lighting around the rec center, I wouldn't want to spend $2,000 on another strategic plan.
All righty.
So do we have direction to staff or not?
No, I think that they're not comfortable with it.
No.
You're both comfortable with it. I'm comfortable with it, but I think there's nothing
It's
to do
okay.
at the moment, right?
It's
We
okay.
just pursue.
Can wait.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Jonas, the last two are yours, 12F.
Yeah, I wanted to take a look at the boards, sort of in midterm, I suppose, because we would have looked at them next spring anyway. But my concern is some of the boards that don't seem to meet on a regular basis. They can't produce quorums, and sometimes when they do, they're just bare quorums of 3 people. And I just want to make sure that we feel that these boards are functional, or encourage them to be functional, or ask them if they don't have anything to do and they don't want to be boards anymore. Is Dan Samari? Oh, there you are, Dan. Dan was concerned that that somebody would want to shut down the Recreation Advisory Board, and I don't think that was necessarily the idea. I do notice a number of visits that, meetings that didn't happen because there was no quorum, and sometimes it was just that bare quorum. I'm also aware that Recreation Advisory did not in any way participate in Child Safety Day this year, which is events. You also participate in Halloween, and I just want to know, do you want to rededicate yourselves?
No,
Do you want to make this viable?
No,
or do you
first
kinda
off,
give up, or what do you think?
we were short. We were short. We only had 4 members. We have came in front of this commission many times and told you that we were short 1 member. One of our, Charlie, I don't know who appointed Charlie, but he hasn't been to, I think, maybe 2 meetings out of the whole time. And I've emailed him each time, and he says that he has family activity. He didn't resign or anything, so I don't know who appointed Charlie. And former Mayor Jacob was appointed, and all of a sudden his work schedule changed where he was working at night. Can't do anything about when a board member's job changes. He has now been put on day shifts, so he will be making all of the meetings. And Walter, which is one of our board members, was not happy being on the board. It was just that he felt that we wasn't having enough people show up to the meetings. Again, so even though Charlie was on the board, we were technically 2 members short. One that you guys have not given us, the one from one of the other board members who resigned, Patrick. We still haven't gotten a replacement for Patrick, and he resigned quite a while back. So we were technically 2 members short. I can't force a board member to show up. I don't know why Charlie hasn't been showing up. The last last recreation meeting, Walter said he never met Charlie, and I didn't realize it has been over a year since Charlie has been on it. I thought if
Have you asked Charlie why he doesn't come to meetings?
I've asked him, and he hasn't responded as far as when events come up. He tells me he has family activities that has to work.
So you're saying that you want to keep this board alive?
I want to, let's put it this way. I'm hoping that I can convince, well, now that former Mayor Jacob is going to be doing it on a regular basis, I have submitted, I have an alternate, one of the alternates, and she turned in her application. She will be there to help us as much as we can. She's been helping me all through the whole year, but I don't want to have it to where she has to be in every single meeting. So with me, Jacob, and the new member that was turning his application today, Mr. Daniel, that's 3. That's 99% chance those 3 people will be showing up all the time. So we will have quorum, but we're still 2 members short. So
we missed your presence altogether at Child Safety Day and Halloween. What do you want to do about that?
I show up at all the events. If I don't, listen carefully, listen please, listen carefully, Commissioner. If I don't show up, I have a business I have to run. If I don't show up at a particular event, that means something came up with my business. Same thing with Halloween. I didn't have a choice on Halloween night. Happens to be on a Friday. I'm sorry, I have a business that I run. I make 99.9% of the events. I do not miss any of the events. If I miss it, it's because I'm tied up with my business that came up on a Friday. If that would have been a Saturday, would have been no problem.
All right, guys, it's
Okay,
getting late.
so
I think-
the point I'm trying to make is we're still 2 members short.
Yeah.
So replace it.
Mayor, I
Let
just
us
wanted
know
to
if you have any suggestions as to who'd be interested.
Yes.
Well, I do have a suggestion. I think that if we don't get enough people to support, to join boards. I don't know why people, and we're not the only city that this happens. And our rec board is not the only board that this happens to. I think maybe if the commission, there's two things that I would recommend. If the commission would waive, because somebody informed me that this has happened in the past where we have had somebody from the outside is accepted on the board. Okay, but also I think we need to, if we can waive the 6 month. I have somebody that wants to be on the board right now, but he has just moved into the village right now, and he's not here, been here 6 months. That's one. And I think that we can also extend it. Our families that have a husband and wife, or, that I think maybe if we can allow boards to have where, if I'm correct, that there's no family member can serve on the same board, right? And I think if we can waive that, you'll probably get a lot more people to serve. I mean, because I have Mr. Daniel, his wife is possibly interested in serving on the rec board, but she can't because she's married to the person that's going to be on the board.
Okay, thank you.
The rec board wants us to.
Let me clarify one thing, if I may, take a second. There was an exception made. It was not when the boards were formalized. It was the Public Works Committee. And a gentleman who owns several properties in the village but doesn't live in the village, he was, the commission waived, and he was allowed to serve on the committee.
Right. Okay.
But it was committee, it wasn't, it was before boards were formalized.
Since we're not getting a lot of people to show up to boards, I think we need
Mr.
to.
City Attorney,
Under ordinance, so we know, we do have a provision that you could waive it with a 4/5 majority.
okay, that's the process. Madam Clerk?
I just wanted to clarify, a commissioner did not appoint Mr. McDonald. There's no more of that.
Okay.
We changed the ordinance. Everybody submitted an application, and the commission voted as a body to accept those applications.
Okay.
So it's no longer one-on-one type selection.
Okay, other comments from the commission?
Yeah.
And just number two,
Sorry.
our code states that the failure of a board to have a quorum at 2 consecutive meetings shall automatically trigger a review of the board. So it's my responsibility to, and that's why I included in there, to inform you of that.
Okay, understood. Yeah, I don't think anyone's intent is to disband the board. I just.
No, you just heard what she said. I can hear what you just said.
No, I didn't say to disband, I said to trigger a review. Trigger a
To
review.
figure out what, maybe we could.
She has a responsibility per the code to notify the
Oh, I ain't
commission.
I'm not
That's all she
questioning,
did.
no, I'm not
Never said
questioning
disband.
that. I'm
Trigger
not-
a review.
Yeah, maybe we can do things to help you gain more board members. I mean, that's all. That's the reason for the discussion. All right.
Well, perfect
Dan,
example, I'm not gonna have
Biscayne?
quorum next month because you're not gonna approve
Yeah, what?
Mr. Daniel, and you're not gonna approve my alternate. So how am I gonna have quorum for next meeting?
All right, so let's.
They weren't provided with that. I got those after the
I
agenda was
understand,
done.
because I've been fighting to get people to join, so, I mean, we just.
People are
kinda last
disaffected.
minute.
People
All right,
won't
so
join.
tonight is just a discussion and. go ahead.
Okay, come March, the commission's going to be reappointing the different members on the different boards. I propose we could go ahead in February or January to have the chair of each board to come in front of the commission, spend 5 minutes explaining how their board is functioning, so we could get a synopsis on every board of how well they're doing. And there's no more than 5 minutes each chair can let us know. At that point, the commission has a choice on any of these, most of these boards, to put a sunset. So we could take a look, listen to the presentation from the chair, and decide whether we should be sunsetting or not.
I did. We seem to make them. What's the saying? Make a mountain out of a mole. I mean, out of every issue. Not many issues. I mean, look. Try to get new members. We'll try to help you. Still try to meet a quorum, and let's move on. I mean,
Well, we're not gonna have a quorum next meeting.
Well,
because
try
we
to
got-
get.
How am I gonna,
Just wait.
can't, you got people already and you haven't proved it yet. The next meeting is right after
All right,
a
well,
couple
say
weeks.
we'll waive the next meeting. All right, whole, everything about the boards is in our charter, correct? In our code? Okay, I think that we might consider changing the code. I think that some and some of the people who have left your board told me they felt that they had nothing left to do because Children's Safety Day was taken away. They couldn't help decide
That's right,
movies, and so what were they doing? And so they left. And other people don't want to make the commitment, one, either because they're disaffected, and the ones I've talked to in recent months, or they say that it's too large a commitment with once-a-month meetings, that they've got busy lives and blah, 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 blah. And so I suggest that perhaps we might change our description of the requirements of the board. Some boards really do need to meet once a month regularly. Other boards may not, and may be able to function fine working every 2 months. For instance, the Ecology Board, when it has a project that it really wants to get going and everything, may take action, but meeting every month, maybe people will have trouble finding things to put on the agenda.
No, that's a good point.
You know.
Good point, yeah. Any other comments?
I have a question. Commissioner Anderson was saying in March we're going to review the boards. I thought that only occurred after an election.
Yes, that's what I thought too.
It's annual.
Annual. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? No? All right.
What about our next meeting?
Well, then, if you don't have a quorum, you can't meet, but that doesn't mean you're going to be disbanded. You just try to meet the applications were submitted tonight.
So that's one of the things that Walter was very upset is because of the fact that we set an agenda and we never get to the products because we never have quorum.
Yeah, I mean,
And part of it is the commission's fault because we have requested that you come up with a member to recommend. We have done that.
We set an agenda also, and those applications need to be on an agenda before we can approve them.
okay, so they were received, so we'll
Okay,
put them on.
wasn't our alternate application already turned in, and shouldn't that alternate could be approved tonight?
After the agenda. It was after I had already sent out the agenda.
All right, can we get them on? Can we get them on for the special meeting in 3 weeks? Okay, Dan, it will be in 2 or 3 weeks, the next meeting.
See,
Go.
it has
See.
to
You
be,
just said, no, they're gonna put it on the thing.
it has to be on the agenda because it's public information, so the public is aware of it.
Right, so they're gonna put it on the thing, so get it approved, so then you can have your meeting.
Madam Manager, did you want to?
2 weeks is like the 18th.
All right.
Well, then I'm not gonna.
All right, let's
Yeah.
move. Yes.
Delay the meeting for a week.
Moving on to item 12. Madam Manager, did you want to say something? I'm sorry.
We're good.
I got the hand. 12G. Commissioner Jonas.
Yeah, the Florida League of Cities puts on a training for elected municipal officials. That's what they call it. The IMO, Institute for Elected Municipal Officials. They have technically 3 levels, but it's the first 2 that are really the most crucial. They put on the first level in a few different places around the state, and the second level occurs only one place in the state. These are amazingly valuable trainings that they have. They bring in speakers from around the state, people who have a lot of experience with municipal government, municipal management, state regulations. I have attended this year both levels 1 and 2. Level 3, I think, occurs either this month or next month. Oh, no, I'm sorry, it occurs in the spring, and I will attend that too. The point is that I think that we should mandate for Biscayne Park elected officials that they attend the first 2 levels of this training
I'll lose my
once
job.
After they're elected. It's really sort of an invaluable experience to have. The training is for people who expect to work in government in Florida. The cost is fairly low for both of the trainings. The first one I attended was in Delray Beach, so I just drove up there and back every day, and all I had to spend was the money for the tuition. The other was in Orlando, so I had to stay. But I think it's so inexpensive and so valuable that the commission should simply mandate that this is required of all Biscayne Park elected officials from now on. That's why I bring this up.
I'd have to resign.
I have a question. If this was mandated and a person was elected and when the date finally came up of when the course was happening, they couldn't take off from work to go ahead and attend it. What happens at that point? Do they get kicked off the commission and we have to have another election?
My intention is that they would make a commitment to attend this. I work too, and I take the time off to attend this, and I think that should be part of the job, to do this one time.
So what you're saying is only people should run for the commission who has the freedom on their job.
To juggle.
They can't be teachers, they can't be, there's a lot of professions, they only have people that have the freedom on their occupation to be able to, when something, this comes up, after they're elected, they can take that time off. And that small amount of money, driving up to, however you get up to Orlando, spend the night in the hotel and pay for it, you know, not everybody thinks that's a small amount of money.
I think our attorney can shed some light.
Real quick, the commission can't pass on something that would take away someone's office. Power. And one issue I was going to bring up when I was a village attorney, which kind of segues into this, there is a new law that's been passed. It's effective starting January 1st, which does require all elected officials to take 4 hours of training, and the Florida League of Cities is going to be providing that, so that may be a bit of a compromise. So you're going to give 4 hours that everyone has to, and that's a state law. You could lose your office, but there will be convenient locations. I'll keep you abreast as I find out where they're going to be.
Well, this is 5 days instead of 4 hours, but thinking about Bob's point, what if the person works so much and can't get any time off ever that they can't spare the 4 hours? What do they do?
Well, under the state law, it's a requirement, but all I'm simply saying is legally, a commission cannot kick another official off by an action taken by the commission. That's not a state law.
If you're a commissioner,
Could we, just as a policy measure for ourselves, say, we endorse, we encourage you to take, and maybe even expand this if it's not limited to the Florida League of Cities, which is sometimes in Hollywood or Orlando, but there are other universities, FIU and other universities that offer elected officials or municipal training. Maybe we could say we encourage newly elected officials to take at least 12 hours, credit hours of municipal training, rather than just limit it to this one course.
Well, I will tell you that there are municipalities in Florida that do mandate this for their elected officials, and I was hoping we would be one of them, but it sounds like perhaps not.
I would be fired. I would be
All
fired.
right, so why don't we wait? I mean, I like what Vice Mayor Ross suggests, and in the meantime, we can also wait to see what the League of Cities will offer to satisfy that requirement, that new requirement.
Starting January 1st.
But that's just my opinion.
So we'll be talking about it in January again, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, too,
Good with that?
weren't they talking about
We'll talk
possibly
about it in
having like a
January.
webinar, too?
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to have a lot of options.
Give me the range.
Right, because of, you know, correct.
All right, everyone good? We'll move on to village manager annexation update.
13, item 13.
I'm sorry?
13,
Oh, yes.
do you?
No. Any new items for next agenda? None?
No, I'm working on one, but it may not be next agenda because there are a couple of snags in it. But I think that we should, I mentioned this to Heidi when I couldn't be here last month, see about making a policy in the village that all of our employees except the, say, sort of part-time high school kids be given the Miami-Dade minimum wage starting salary. Because I think there's an ordinance that was passed in Miami Beach, and also the county has a policy as well. So I think we should follow suit.
Okay, Madam Manager?
We made that change during this past budget season.
We did it
and
for
brought
them, but
everyone-
we didn't make it as a general policy that henceforth it will be going
But
forward.
it applies to all employees.
So is it in the books? I thought we just decided it for the, okay, never mind.
We put it into
Okay.
practice as opposed to making it a policy. We actually put it into practice
Okay.
and gave each employee that was under a
So
good
then
minimum
it's assumed
wage.
that will never change.
Okay.
It could change.
Yeah. All right, any others?
One item, in January for the past 4 years, we've done the Martin Luther King Day of Service. So I'd like to bring that item for discussion in December and see what the project is going to be, where we want to go with it.
Okay. Anything else?
And you'll prepare a report for that?
Yes.
All right, moving on to 14A, Village Manager Annexation Update.
We have been speaking with our public relations outreach team. They did some public relations outreach before our Halloween event. They did get some response, which is going to allow them to canvass and reach out to people in the annexation area. We are also working with the City of North Miami and trying to coordinate better our applications. The representatives from Becker and Polikoff and myself met with the city manager and their planning manager over there to discuss our applications, and we most likely will be proceeding to speak to some of their elected officials in the coming weeks. Regarding the Village Hall log cabin restoration and annex building, I have an updated Gantt chart for you. And what I've done on this is I've highlighted week 17, which is where we are, with July 1st being week 1. And we continue to remain on schedule. There was a slight shift because the plans, the finalization of the plans and RFQ took 1 extra week, so we shifted over, but it does not affect our overall schedule for the project. We have currently released the plans for the annex building out to bid. 11 bid packets have been picked up to date. Of those, I think it's 4 are companies that pick up plans so they can track and report on market trends. But the majority of the plans were picked up by local construction companies. We're having a mandatory pre-bid meeting on the site next Monday, and the bids are due on November 24th. The the invitation to bid review committee will be meeting on December 1st, and we will be forwarding their recommendation. And again, this is the best case scenario. Our plan is to forward their recommendation to you at a special meeting of the commission on December 9th. Also at that meeting, we will transition into a workshop where we will have a discussion about the log cabin and the plans for going forward for the log cabin. Regarding the, I just talked about the scheduling of the special meeting, the approval of the contract, and to discuss the log cabin. Just 2 other items. I want to mention that April 2015 is National Volunteer Month. So we are planning, the staff is going to plan to do some kind of, be it a breakfast, dinner, lunch, or something, brunch, tea, to recognize our volunteers here in the village on all of our boards, as well as our Village Hall and Recreation Center
What is the date of that?
volunteers.
Sorry.
It's sometime in the month of April. As we get closer, we will definitely narrow it down, but I didn't know if maybe the commission wanted to designate a commissioner who could work with us on this. It could be a joint effort between the commission and staff if you'd like to designate someone to work on this. So.
Okay. Commissioner Watts, you volunteer?
No, what is it exactly? I was thinking of something else. If it has to do with the log cabin, I volunteer.
I'm happy to volunteer for that.
All right, Vice Mayor Ross. No,
Great.
it was, okay.
Thank you. And finally, just Halloween was a big success from the staff's perspective. The police chief is out with a flu this week, and it might be from kissing all those babies, because he told me that police chiefs spend all year trying to figure out how to improve public relations of the police force, and he was just blown away by the reception of our police officers, by those who were out enjoying the Halloween spirit and trick-or-treating, the number of pictures taken with our police officers. Overall, we had no incidents in the village at all related to Halloween or trick-or-treating. Everyone was on great behavior. They cooperated with our police, and I want to thank Chuck from Crime Watch for taking control of the entrance into the village, and with Commissioner Jonas and one of our officers, were able to politely welcome people to the village and tell them also at the same time to park their cars and get out and walk and not drive through the village, which he was able to do that in a way that was welcoming and kind. I spent a little time there, and it lent itself for it to be a safe night throughout the village, and as staff we're already starting to talk about what we're going to do differently. We've heard from some residents that they want to help us, so we're just going to keep getting bigger and better. And I want to recognize Shalisa because this was her first Halloween, and I think she did an amazing job. And just a reminder, this Saturday is an opportunity to get out there, enjoy the fresh air. We have walk a hound, lose a pound. Starting at 9 o'clock at Village Hall. We do a mile route through the village. We end up over here at the rec center. There will be a water station halfway through for the pooches, and when you get back over here, we'll have water for the dogs as well.
All right,
Thank
you, Madam Manager. Mr. Tierney, do you have anything?
I wanted to tell you about that, the new change in law, and then also very briefly, despite the fact that the manager and staff as we moved forward, we actually had several changes that we asked the Department of Economic Opportunity on the $1 million grant to provide, and that just came back. And what happens is when people give you $1 million, you're not have to make many changes. We're all in, so we didn't get the changes that we wanted. We wanted to get a 90-day extension, at least a consideration. They might do that, but they wouldn't agree to put in the agreement. But obviously, we bought it long, accepted $1 million, so we're executing this agreement. Consistent with the commission.
Okay. All right. Anything else from the commission?
Yeah, I got just a couple of questions.
Sure.
Of staff. I just got a couple of questions. One, the bathroom update.
Sure. We're ready to go. We just need to get our contractor on board. I was waiting for Christian went to code training last week, and I was waiting for him to get back so he can do the daily supervision of the project. So hopefully within the next week or two, we'll be starting the project.
And the other thing is I know one of our residents, it happens to be Dan Keys, that's asking about the restoration of the log cabin, what's going to be torn apart and stuff. And, you know, if we could maybe ask the state again of those two areas, because they are historical areas, where your office is and where the kitchen is.
But the state's not going to get involved with that. The state doesn't.
Then who does?
It's up to us. I mean,
No, the Department of Historical Resources has defined that scope of work to remove the additions based on the report that was provided to them on behalf of the village by R.J.
but the
Eisenbottom.
Department of Historical Resources is related to the grant? I mean, related to the appropriation?
Well, there's don't forget there's a portion coming from the Department of Historical Resources, but the Department of Historical Resources and the Department of Economic Opportunity have been working together to define the scopes of work to make sure that there's no overlap in our scope of work. And ultimately, the Department of Historical Resources is involved. The portion of the scope of work that falls to the, it's a tangled web. The scope of work that is in the Department of Historical Resources grant is the roof structure. And the roof is dependent upon the removal of the additions. That affects the roof structure itself, as well as some other upgrades. So there is some involvement definitely from the Division of Historical Resources. I shared with the commission as well as Mr. Keys the response that I received from the division, and I've pushed them back and I'm asking them some more questions, but as of right now, they're talking about the removal of the additions.
Would it make any difference to them if they heard from Heisenbottle?
Most likely. I'm working on getting a proposal right now from Heisenbottle to re-engage him to continue on with us for this portion of the project.
But where the kitchen is right now, that doesn't affect the roof structure.
Correct. But where the offices are, the problem is the kitchen was not added to 1976.
I beg your
Not true. Absolutely not true. The state, here's the issue. At the state, the master site file form, and we just went through it last week, or earlier this week, is from 1975, and it does not have the kitchen addition with it.
How long you been here? How long you been here? Kitchen's been here since 1930. All of the enclosure, including the addition, have been there at least since August 30th, 1966. I can't tell you before that. Okay, but I can tell you they were ancient at that point.
I'm happy to share with you the files that we have from them.
All right, but I think we can have.
They're photographs.
I think
They're
that we could find a
photographs
way
of it
to
where it
have
shows.
like a period piece to have a sink and everything that would look like a, you know.
I mean, I sat on the commission 10 years. It wasn't 1976.
All right, well, why don't
We
we
could discuss it more.
Yeah, why don't you get together?
But this is part of that December 9th
Right,
meeting,
exactly,
and I'm
exactly.
still trying to get answers. While I'm a historic preservationist in the past, I am not the historic preservationist on this project that is Heisenbottle when we bring forward the agreement, and I think it's important to have that conversation with him.
And then we can all discuss it on December 9th.
That's we're doing as much fact-finding before December 9th as we can.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that we don't run out of time on this, and that Heisenbottle is aware that our concerns before tonight, so when he comes here, he's already prepared for some of the questions.
Yeah.
And frankly, he needs to be aware of some of the misinformation that he acted on.
Okay, well, can you work with Heidi to get him that information?
I'm going to get it to him. I'm waiting for the proposal from him, and then he's
Okay.
working on a proposal, and then I was going to share that with him.
I just like to return to the restrooms for 1 second. Has the contractor agreed to cover all the expenses of redoing the restrooms?
Everything except for the new drywall, which is $1,500.
And are new stalls going to be ordered? Or
That's a cost that we would have to take on.
Yeah, I'd like to talk with you afterwards about that. Okay. And about the refrigerator, is that working now?
No.
Okay.
The one that was donated?
Correct.
Okay.
Because one was broken.
Okay. All right, let's finish up with announcements.
Oh, before the clerk announces, unless, I just wanted to be able to say on air about the Toys for Tots drive. Were you going to
Yes,
announce
we'll
that?
I will now.
I don't want to steal your thunder.
All right.
And the volunteers for historic.
Oh, good idea.
I've gotten 5 already.
Great.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Saturday, November 8th is our Walk a Hound, Lose a Pound event, starting at Village Hall at 9 a.m. Tuesday, November 11th, all village departments are closed in observance of Veterans Day. Wednesday, November 12th is the Public Art Advisory Board at 6 p.m. Wednesday, November 12th is a Code Compliance Board at 7 p.m. Saturday, November 15th is Movie Night at the Park, starting at 6:30 p.m. Monday, November 17th is Planning and Zoning Board at 6:30 p.m. Monday, November 17th is the Ecology Board at 6:30 p.m. Tuesday, November 18th is a special commission meeting at 6:30 p.m., followed by the Crime Watch meeting at 7 p.m. Wednesday, November 19th is Parks and Parkway Advisory Board at 6 p.m. Wednesday, November 19th is Code Review Board at 7 p.m. Tuesday, November 25th is the Recreation Advisory Board at 7 p.m. Thursday, November 27th and Friday, November 28th, I can't believe I'm saying this, but all village departments are closed for Thanksgiving. And Monday, December 1st is Planning and Zoning Board at 6:30 p.m. And our next meeting is on Tuesday, December 2nd at 7 p.m.
So
And-
the special meeting is what date again? Because it's not on here.
That's correct. It's Tuesday, November 18th, right before the code review, I'm sorry, the Crime Watch meeting.
Right before, at 6:30.
Right, at 6:30,
okay.
yes, sir. The movie is going to be Maleficent. Yes, seating starts at 6, movie at 6:30. As a reminder, we have a Toys for Tots campaign. There's a box here at the Rec Center and a box at Village Hall. A new unwrapped toy would be appreciated.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion to adjourn? All right.